That's it for the show today. Up next, it's the morning show to full day ahead, and every moment matters. I'm Kenneth Warmer.
And I'm Nkechi Nana. Thanks for watching.
Yesterday, I got a call from Globe. I won a 3-bedroom bungalow.
Yes, guys! Guess what? I won a car.
I won a generator by participating in the Festival of Joy promo by Globe.
Hey, don't do this one for me. To make it set to me with sewing machine.
I won generator last year. This year I won for
It's a celebration like no other, with prizes like no other. 20 new houses to be won, 24 brand new cars, 200 sewing machines, 100 generators, 1,000 rechargeable fans. Glow Festival of Joy promo. Dial *611# now.
We don't like to eat better, more nutritious meals, more veggies, but we want it tasty and easy too. Knorr Cubes, that's the secret. Made with real ingredients like chicken, parsley, and garlic, and enriched with iron, so your meals are better for you and more delicious too. That's the cocoa. Let's give it some accolades. Change your world by changing what's on your plate.
It all starts with a bell. And that bell means it's business time. The bell rings in London, Lagos, Cairo, and Joburg, kicking off a new day of opportunities. New idea being born and bought, deals being done, big global players winning big or losing it all. IPOs, mergers, takeovers, stocks, bonds, and commodities. In the business world, the winner takes the spoils. In the business day, every moment matters. Trust us to be your guide to the highs and lows of the global marketplace. We will round up the business day with up, what's down, the bears and the bulls, and what to watch out for. This is Arise Exchange.
Every moment
matters. Every decision, every moment of courage, every act of kindness, every declaration of war is made by someone, somewhere. Arise Newsnight analyzes the decisions that affect all of our lives.
A very warm welcome to you. This is News Night. Every night, we bring you the moments that matter, from the top to the bottom, and in every corner of our country. We bring you a focused agenda from Nigeria, Africa, and beyond. Focus on what's important with Arise Newsnight.
It all starts with a bell. And that bell means it's business time. The bell rings in London, Lagos, Cairo, and Joburg, kicking off a new day of opportunities. New idea being born and bought, deals being done, big global players winning big or losing it all. IPOs, mergers, takeovers, stocks, bonds, and commodities. In the business world, the winner takes the spoils. In the business day, every moment matters. Trust us to be your guide to the highs and lows of the global marketplace. We'll round up the business day, what's up, what's down, the bears and the bulls, and what to watch out for. This is Arise Exchange.
We all love a bit of showbiz. If it's happening in the world of entertainment, you'll be hearing about it here.
From what's trending on the socials to music and movies, and all the latest showbiz gossip from around the world. Join us for a front row seat at the Oscars in Los Angeles, or the biggest moments from Fashion Week. It's fun, it's fresh, and it's packed full of all the entertainment news you need to know. You heard it here first.
I'm Kachi Ofia, and this is Arise 360, where every culture matters.
This is the heart of the business world in Lagos, the commercial capital of Africa's largest economy.
These aren't just numbers. They represent our nation's sharpest minds, our most successful investors, our most inspiring bosses. In Nigeria, business is in our DNA. From micro-business to startups to world-conquering brands. Every success story has something in common. They all started somewhere. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Global Business Report gets to the heart of business. We bring you the stories making headlines across the globe with in-depth analysis from experts and executives.
This is not business as usual. This is the Global Business Report.
Good morning out there. You're watching The Morning Show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati.
And I'm Ayo Myro Essay. We've got a great show lined up for you over the next 3 hours. So sit back, relax, and let's kickstart your day because the morning show begins right now.
With the presidential election set for late February 25 to be specific, candidates contesting are combing every corner of Nigeria to convince Nigerians of their plans for the country. With incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari's term almost over, the country will be choosing a new leader. That new president will immediately confront an exhausting array of challenges, from multiple to complex security crisis to a disastrously mismanaged economy. But as he heads to the polls, there are some reasons for optimism that the upcoming election will be an improvement on the 2019 election. President Buhari has strongly signaled that he wants a credible, transparent electoral process to be an important part of his legacy. However, Buhari has joined the campaign train of the candidate of the ruling All Progressives Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as the APC seeks to retain power. But the party faces strong competition from the candidates of the main opposition party, the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, Labour Party's Peter Obi, and candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, Rabiu Kwankwanso. Joining us later on this show this morning to discuss the state of Nigerian politics ahead of the presidential election is Professor Udenta, a scholar, founding National Secretary of the Alliance for Democracy. Moving things along, we'll also be engaging Ladipo Johnson, spokesperson of the NNPP Presidential Campaign Council. We will be discussing the presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, Dr. Musa Kwankwanso's address at the Chatham House in London.
We'll also catch up on news making headlines across the globe. Michael Wilson will give us updates on global business outlook, while Rotu Sadiri will update us on activities at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. We'll also review today's newspapers with Rise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni, while Odiope will fill us in on what's trending around the world. It's going to be all that and a whole lot more today on The Morning Show. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. President Muhammadu Buhari has extended the tenure of the Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba. The extension, which was contained in a letter to the relevant authorities, put paid to speculations about his likely retirement before the general election starting February 25. Speculations had been rife that Baba might retire before the elections, but Minister of Police Affairs, Mohammed Dingyadi, clarified the issues yesterday while speaking to newsmen after the Federal Executive Council meeting presided by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo at State House, Abuja. Dingyadi said the IG would not be retiring midway into the general election as early as expected, as his tenure had already been extended by Buhari. The minister explained that the Police Act 2020 had changed the rules for the IG's retirement. Well, good morning, Dr. Abati.
Good morning.
Starting off with the story on the IG of Police extension by the president.
Okay, I know that many Nigerians will feel concerned about this. They will say, why is the president of Nigeria extending the tenure of the Inspector General of Police? Because, before now, the basic rule, civil service rule and regulation is that, persons would be expected to retire after they have attained the age of 60 years. Even if it's a tenured position within the civil service regulation, it's a question of which of the two comes first.
So once you are 60, you are required to leave. However, in this particular case, the Minister of Police Affairs, Dinginyadi, is saying that it's a matter of law that this particular Inspector General of Police was appointed under the new Nigerian Police Act of 2020. Now, Usman Baba, was first appointed in an acting capacity in April 2021. And then his appointment was confirmed much later in June 2021. Now, the argument of the Minister of Police Affairs is that he was appointed under the new law, not under the Nigerian Police Service Act that predated it. So, of course, his argument, therefore, is that the new law prevails. And what the new law prevails is that the Inspector General of Police will have a 4-year tenure. So that's a departure from what existed before now. So to that extent, what we just need to do is to scrutinize that law and make sure that the Minister of Police Affairs is not putting it out of context. But I suspect that is giving the right, quotation. So to that extent, Usman Baba can as well stay on until he completes his 4 years, which will be 2021 to 2025. However, all executive positions, all positions are at the pleasure of the President of Nigeria. That's what Section 5 of the Nigerian Constitution, 1999 Constitution says. So Usman Baba should not go about celebrating that he has been covered by the Police Act of 2020. Because once a new government comes in, his job may be one of those positions. The new president can just decide that, look, thank you very much, you are out of here, and it's gone. The matter may go to the National Assembly, but if the new president does not want you, you are gone. Now, what we're told is that there are other officers within the police force, from the level of DIGs to AIGs to commissioners of police, in total about 290 of them, who should have retired within the first quarter, or who should retire within the first quarter of the year 2023. What happens to those persons? Because those persons too are likely to be raising their necks, because Nigerians don't ever want to go home. Nigerians don't even like to go on leave. Even when leaving, in my former engagements, the company had to decide that, look, when your leave is due, just go. Nobody is indispensable, but Nigerians like to imagine that they are indispensable. When it is time to go on leave, they don't go. When it is time to retire, they want to die in the office. Okay? So this is likely to cause some disquiet within the Nigerian police force, because those 290 other officers will say hi about them. But the basic difference is that those ones were appointed, most of them were appointed under the civil service regulations. They were not appointed because the Nigerian Police Act of 2020 refers only to the position of the Inspector General of Police. Now, we'll hear more about this, I'm sure, because, the police as an institution in Nigeria is just as political as any other institution. But I would like to advise Usman Baba himself, he should not wait till the new government sends him packing. If the law keeps him there till the end of the election, after the election, let him also have some self-respect and resign and go home honorably. I'm sure he has done more than the number of years in service, so he should not constitute himself into a clog in the wheel of the progress of the Nigerian police force. More so, as his tenure so far has not been extraordinary. I think, the next administration will be glad to have him tender his letter of resignation, quoting the law, and saying I was appointed under Police Act 2020. Absolutely begs the question. But he might as well stay on with the protection of the law under which he was appointed. I hope that will not come back to haunt him, because he has a responsibility, he and his team, to deliver within the framework of interagency collaboration that Yakubu Mahmoud was talking about just about a day or 2 days ago, to ensure that the police does not drop the ball in terms of its contributions to the success of the 2023 polls. If he stays there long enough and he does not deliver, that will be, the kind of record that he will be leaving behind. And that would tarnish, become a blemish upon his record of performance in his entire career. But these are the issues, I think. To the extent that they are quoting the law, okay, if the law says so, fine. But you should know that he cannot sit in that office beyond the pleasure of the next president, whatever the law says.
Absolutely correct. Just as you mentioned, last year, this issue had actually come up with the previous IG of police, Mr. Mohammed Adamu, and this was when a lawyer, Maxwell Okpara, had sued the federal government and the president's court with regards to retirement age versus years of service and the president's powers to extend the tenure of an IGP. Now, the court had ruled, the Federal High Court had ruled that the president had the powers to extend the tenure of the Inspector General of Police, hence was within the rights of the president, as the Constitution is not clear as to whether the president can, or the president has the powers to extend the tenure of the IGP. However, as Dr. Bati had mentioned, with regards to the Police Act of 2020, the president can extend, despite the fact that Mr. Baba Usman Al-Khali came into service in 1988. Therefore, he has fulfilled 35 years of service, or 35 years would be about 13, 18, that's this year, and then 60 will be 60 years on the 1st of March of this year. Now, you would wonder why an extension would be necessary and not just him following his retirement age or perhaps his years of service. The president is reluctant, or perhaps might be reluctant, to let him go right in the middle of elections, and quite understandable, because the change of power at that time might disrupt a number of plans and activities from security agencies. However, it is important that, bearing in mind this trust, bringing into view a very critical time in Nigeria's life cycle, the elections of 2023, of which the IG plays quite a critical role, particularly as we have talked about security, the state of security in the nation and the state of security for INEC offices and during the election cycle. This is a call for the IG of police to ensure that he and his men do all they're able to do within the powers constituted to them to ensure that they support a free, fair, and credible election, as has been hammered by the president. We're looking forward to him having a successful end of tenure, and like Dr. mentioned, perhaps once he's been able to deliver a successful election security-wise, then he can take a bow whilst ovation is perhaps loudest. Well, the Federal Executive Council has approved 2.29 billion naira for the manufacturing of training aircraft in Zaria, Kaduna State. Minister of Aviation Hadi Sirika made the remark after the first meeting of the council chaired by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo. Other ministers with memos approved include Works and Housing, Environment, and Police Affairs. State House correspondent Adesua Omoran reports.
It's the first meeting of the Federal Executive Council for the year 2023. With President Muhammadu Buhari in Mauritania, Vice President Yemi Oshibajo presides over the affairs of the cabinet. The plans by the Buhari administration to commence local manufacturing of aircraft has now received the boost at the Federal Executive Council meeting. But first, an assembling plant is to be located in Zaria in partnership with a Hungarian-based aircraft company, Magnus Aircraft, which will cost 2.2 billion naira with a completion period of 18 months. Minister of Aviation explains the need for the training aircraft.
So this airplane is fully aerobatic. It goes into aerobatics, and I think the Nigerian Air Force and the Air Force around the region will be interested and excited by this development. But we are taking the lead in civil aviation. It's our intention to produce them here, assemble them here, and perhaps even in the future, sell them out to whoever is interested around the world. So this will happen, and I think the first 1 or 2 aircraft will happen, the assemblage here in Nigeria, and to fly them within the remaining 4 months that we have as a government.
To improve safety and enable pilots land in poor visibility conditions, the aviation minister also reveals that the council approved 546 million naira for the procurement and installation of Category 3C landing system in 15 airports nationwide, beginning with Port Harcourt International Airport, Aminu Kano International Airport, as well as Kano and Katsina airports. On the Nigeria Air project started by the government, which is now immersed in a legal tussle, Sirika declined to give detailed comments on the issue, saying it was sub judice. But he chipped in that there is, quote, nothing stopping the takeoff of Nigeria Air, end quote. In other memos, the council approved the recommendation for the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited and its subsidiaries to invest 1.9 trillion naira in the reconstruction of 44 federal roads under the tax credit policy.
The council approved the proposal by the Ministry of Works and Housing for the reconstruction of 44 proposed federal roads with a total length of 4,554 kilometers in the total sum of 1.9 trillion naira. In another memo, the Minister for Works and Housing also got approval of the council for concessionaires for 9 road corridors under the pilot phase of the value-added concession of the Highways Development and Management Initiative.
For the Ministry of Environment, 1.3 billion naira was approved for the procurement of 31 vehicles to aid inspection of the hydrocarbon remediation project in Ogoniland. Adesua, Omoruan, Arise News.
Thank you for that report, Adesua. Doctor, your take on that report?
Okay, well, I mean, one basic principle is that government is continuous. And when a government is in its departure season, it tries to show that it will work till the very last day. So it's a psychological thing in the governance process. And so you'll find that at the last minute, the sitting government still keeps very busy. Fake meeting, they are announcing contracts, they are awarding projects, they are just to show that the government is not lame dog. Because in a lame dog season, what happens is that you find that people don't want to work again. Even your aides, they are busy attending political rallies. They are busy, trying to do long truths, as Nigerians call it, how they can find a foot, in the next administration. So what the political leader of a sitting government does is to try to keep generating the momentum. Now, I've said this in terms of a contest. So this is January. This government, by February, before the end of February, we'll know where we stand. And yet, Federal Executive Council meeting is still talking about contracts, is still talking about awarding things, is extending appointments. When a new government comes in, all of this may change. So I won't put much store by what a government does, despite the principle of the continuity of administrations in the last moment. We have seen the example at a lower level, perhaps most recently in Osun State, where in the last moments, the APC government tried to do so many things, awarding this and that. The first thing Adeleke of the PDP did when he came in was to reverse everything that was done. However, beyond all of that, let's look at the basic substance of some of what had been projected. The first is the training aircraft, the aerobatic, yes? Yeah, I think he said that, the aerobatic aircraft that will now be manufactured in Hungary and then will be coupled together at the Nigerian College of Aviation Technology and all of that. Well, in principle, yeah, you may say it looks okay, but why is Nigeria perpetually an assembling point for things, whether it's training aircraft or for any other thing? The whole objective of the industrial plan in Nigeria is to make Nigeria a manufacturing hub and perhaps a service hub, not just for Nigeria, but for the whole of West Africa. Nigeria used to be a major aviation maintenance hub for the entire West African region. This Murtala Mohammed Airport here, it has a wing there where, you know, the servicing of aircraft was done across West Africa, here in Nigeria. The equipment, all the things were abandoned. Okay, under this administration, have we not had tales about Air Nigeria? Where is Air Nigeria? What is the guarantee that this manufacturing of aircraft would not be another Nigeria Air project? And where is the money going to come from? So it's not enough to just make these promises. As for the roads, we've been on the roads. I mean, as far back as 18 months ago, the Nigerian government, in fact, designated 18 special projects, the ones that they consider highly valuable, including Abuja, Lokoja, and some other roads. Yeah, one government cannot finish everything, but at the policy level, will the next government, because by now we should begin to talk about the next government, because you can't tie the hands of the next government. Even at a time when we are being told that the next government is going to inherit a debt burden of 77 trillion naira. So all of this is good for the optics, but I'm sure the politicians are thinking ahead. Nigerians also should be thinking ahead. But you can't stop having Federal Executive Council meeting because there is an election. You must keep making promises. You must keep assuring Nigerians. Concept, good, but we are already beginning to move beyond the present administration to the future.
Brilliant. Well, just to highlight that the 1.9 trillion naira investment is coming from the NNPC, or that's the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited. And this is under the Federal Executive Council scheme for private investments into federal infrastructure. And this brings to light some of the, since we're talking about the NNPCL, also that the fact that there's still fuel scarcity out there. It's not many in the news this morning, but it's very important to highlight that because we're promised in November that we would see an end before December 25, and unfortunately, the queues are still persistent out there, and the sale of PMS is way above the recommended price. Well, that's all on the news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Michael Wilson to give us updates on global business activities. Stay with us.
I've been running my business on my own, trying my best to get it to the next level, but I really need some help to get ahead. I know just what to do, I'll vote it for my loans, overdraft, step by step to my dream business with Vote. Vote is the answer. Salary earners, entrepreneurs, get your loans with no collateral. Yeah. Vote is the answer. Quick sign up, zero paperwork, step by step to your dream business with Vote. By Polaris Bank.
Vault is available to individuals, SMEs, and corporate customers. Download Vault by Polaris Bank from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to get started today.
Vault is the answer.
Yesterday, I got a call from Globe. I won a 3-bedroom bungalow.
Yes, guys! Guess what? I won a car.
I won a generator by participating in the Festival of Joy promo by Glow.
Hey, Glow don't do this one for me. Glow to make it to me with sewing machine.
I won generator last year. This year I won for art.
It's a celebration like no other with prizes like no other. 20 new houses to be won, 24 brand new cars, 200 sewing machines, 100 generators, 1,000 rechargeable fans. Glow Festival of Joy promo. Dial *611# now.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from Cape Town, South Africa. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. Let's start with the Asia-Pacific markets. And given those big falls on Wall Street last night, fairly mixed actually this morning, not moving an enormous amount. However, I do need to draw your attention to this, that the president of China, Xi Jinping, has warned that the Lunar New Year, which sees the biggest global migration of families, 1.4 billion people, 2 billion trips within China, may act as a super spreader for COVID-19. So given the big lockdown in China and all the rest of it, and given the fact that it appears as though infections are rising, the Lunar New Year celebrations, which begin fairly soon, could be a huge add to the COVID situation in China, could be a big test of it. So he is warning about that. It could be what's described as the biggest super spreader event since the whole thing started in Wuhan in 2019. In Zurich, as a sort of throw-off from Davos, being as how they're both in the same country, the Vice President of China, Liu He, met Janet Yellen yesterday. The first face-to-face talks, these took place in Zurich. He talked about tech. The US apparently didn't. We're not exactly sure what took place there, but any face-to-face meetings are seen as a good prospect for trade between the two. Remember that in October, the United States took a sweeping ban on any kind of business or business people actually working with high-end semiconductors, either China-based or owned by China, and President Joe Biden has not repealed any of the Trump-era China tariffs. So that looks like a relatively positive thought. As far as the United States is concerned and the markets there are concerned, as I said, the Dow Jones fell 600 points yesterday. There is some profit taking and also some disappointing retail sales, and the PPI fell 0.5% in December. So all those kind of things, and also add to that, of course, the Empire State Manufacturing Survey, all of which pointed towards a slowing economy, and that's really what was pushing stocks down yesterday. Now, we reported, did we not, that Microsoft was beginning to lay off people? Well, the news is they're going to lay off 10,000 people. They're joining Amazon, Alphabet, and Meta. But one company that is not, and is therefore getting a lot of investor attention, is Apple. And the reason that Apple's not doing that is because it didn't necessarily extend as rapidly in terms of hiring as the other countries did. If you look at the rates of hiring, Apple is about the lowest of them, and Amazon has one, and doesn't have a load of employees. Amazon has 1.8 million employees. Anyway, so Apple is the one thing that investors are looking at, which is not subject to layoffs right now. Adding to the investor story, and it appears that investors hold, and these are figures, about $4.8 trillion worth of cash. That beats what they were holding in May 2020, which was the last high, 4.79 trillion. Now, the question is, where will that cash go? Will it head towards the stock market? Well, maybe it will, maybe it won't. People are getting quite good returns from the money markets right now. And also, they're not liking the kind of volatility that they're seeing in the stock market. So that's a mystery. But that wall of money is there, depending on how it's actually actually distributed around the various financial instruments on Wall Street and, of course, in the rest of the world as well. I should note there's no specific economic or business angle to this, but Jacinda Ardern has stood down as the Prime Minister in New Zealand. She was socially progressive, obviously heading the Labour Party, and took a very, very hard-line attitude towards pandemic response. Basically, the country shut its borders, and she has got nothing. She says she's got nothing left in the tank, so she's going to resign. The elections are in October. It isn't necessarily certain that the Labour Party would actually win those. But anyway, just thought we'd note that because she is a position of influence. And I suppose the one business connection might be if it throws any light on the Asia-Pacific balance of trade power. I suspect not, but we'll see. Right, to the EU then, and France. Strikes throughout the country today, protesting about the rise in the retirement age that Macron wants to push through from 62 to 64. Trains, pension schemes, schools, anything to do with public work, they have to, and people will have to work 43 years for a full pension. 68% of the public oppose these increases. That's what was being said. So there are mass strikes throughout France today. As far as the UK is concerned, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, talking in Davos, has been saying that under a Labour government, Britain would be open for business. This discussion of whether socialism is a good idea has actually been going on in the UK since the 1950s, and there was a slight change when Tony Blair took power, but not exactly sure what clothes Sir Keir Starmer is actually wearing as we speak, but he's also promised a boost for investment and also a boost for green investment in the UK as well. And just a brief note, yesterday we saw a fall in the inflation figures in the UK. I suspect there is still considerable headwinds, but nevertheless the pound has risen against the dollar as a result of that. Oil, the figures there suggest that if there is going to be a soft landing in the United States, and there may well be, given those relatively benign inflation figures and the PPI figures yesterday, the Fed is expected now to be raising rates by 0.25% when it meets on February the 1st. But again, the short-term demand for oil, the short-term demand for crude is still very, very volatile indeed. BHP, the commodities company, is saying that China, when it actually emerges from its lockdown, will stabilise the price of commodities, and it's joining Rio Tinto in that, expecting the commodities sector to stabilise and maybe increase as well. But it's all about China and when it actually gets back to pre-pandemic levels. And cryptos, well, the latest one to file for bankruptcy is Genesis. Bitcoin is down 2.51% as a result of that. And the authorities are gradually turning the screw on other companies as well. And, you take your pick, there's one called Bizlato, which is owned by a Russian national who lives in China. Again, the authorities are taking a very, very sharp line as far as some of these crypto exchanges are concerned. Isn't to say that this is the end of crypto. I don't believe it is. I've often said this. I think once these sort of teething problems have died down, then I think we'll see it as a major force. Certainly the blockchain way of paying people. That's the global view this morning.
Michael, and then I will ask, the questions. The first on crypto. There's also the story about Bizlatos, which is managed by a Russian who lives in China.
It's mentioned that one, didn't it? It's Bizlato, that's right.
Yeah.
Anatoly Legkodimov.
Anatoly, yes, whose cryptocurrency exchange has been identified as providing service for criminals and crooks and drug barons. And he has been charged by the United States authorities. That crypto exchange has also been seized. But I like your optimism that all of these problems within the crypto exchange sector is not likely to lead to the end of that particular emergent industry. As for Jacinda Ardern, well, I think all we can have for her is commendation. She says she's tired. There's no more oil in the tank for her to be able to go ahead. But in the 5.5 years that she was Prime Minister in New Zealand, she did very well. And the Jacinda mania, went beyond the territory of New Zealand, maybe because of her youth and also because of the kind of leadership that she provided during the COVID pandemic at the height of it. She was one of those women that we continue to celebrate, particularly on this program, as forward-looking, as providing reasonable leadership. Well, she steps down in on February 7, as leader of the party. The elections in October, maybe, Jacinda mania will help to restore the fortunes of the Labour Party that didn't particularly do well in the last elections in New Zealand. But we wish her well. She says politicians are human. And that, I think, is a very strong message. She wants to go and get married to her partner, and she wants to look after her daughter. Anyway, that's about Jacinda mania, someone that is admired beyond New Zealand. But I was going to ask you, one of the things coming out of Davos is this concern about the dollar sliding because retail sales going down, data that came out from the U.S. in December, and concerns that the Feds may not go beyond 0.25%. The Fed will be meeting February 1. How can anybody be so sure, that there will be further decrease, even to the point of 0.25 percentage points? Because all of that is just based on calculations that the Feds will not do that. Now, you mentioned Liu He, the Vice Premier of China, inviting Janet Yellen. But if you look at the readout from China and the one from the Department of Commerce in the U.S., the two of them are saying two different things about the meeting. So can anybody put so much store about this promise that communication lines will be open when there are unresolved issues about tariffs, unresolved issues about semiconductors, unresolved issues about the rivalry between both countries?
I think it's a question of how good is your Mandarin, basically. I mean, I agree with you. Yes, there were two very conflicting reports. The US said that the Chinese said they spoke tech. The US didn't, and I did point out that those bans and those export reductions are still in place. Still, the Trump. The Trump rules are still in place, and Joe Biden has done nothing to alter that at all. So I feel as though it was one of those kind of things. It's important that they sat face to face. Let's hope they sit face to face again in the near future. But as anything coming out of that, I'm as mystified as you are. I saw that the two, and they are very, very conflicting ideas of what was actually said. And I think this is the way that trade negotiations coming out of the cold will probably go forward. But he is very experienced as far as trade negotiations are concerned, and he's also head of the financial stability department of his particular administration in China. So I feel as though she is talking to the right person. Whether or not she's making the right kind of noises, I simply don't know. I join you in congratulating Jacinda Ardern. A lot of people in New Zealand do not, and it's no certainty that the Labour Party will actually win the elections in October. But yes, I applaud her honesty by saying enough's enough. I've run out of ideas. I've got nothing left in the tank. I really need to get back to my life. You have to applaud that kind of honesty, don't you?
Absolutely, you have to, and she'll definitely remain on record as at the time the youngest female world leader at the age of 37 when she was elected, and definitely one for the record books. Well, let's talk about Emmanuel Macron, another young leader in France, whose pension reforms not popular, and today unions proceed on strikes. Some are wondering, some analysts are observing to read the body language of the people to see if President Emmanuel Macron would retreat on his pension reforms. What's your take on this?
I think if he does retreat on it, and he may well, it says a great deal about his power, and it says a great deal about France as well. Most other countries do not have such a low retirement age, and I feel as though this is absolutely fundamental to France. It is not affordable, that's pretty clear, because the population is getting older, and therefore there are more people to support. This is a fact of life, and unfortunately France has gone on too long believing that there is as much right not to work as there is to work. And I think it is basically a socialist country. Now, again, I like traveling there. I like the fact that when I go to the local authority, the mairie, there are lots of things to do, lots of art lessons to take, lots of music lessons to take, all those kind of things. But that's all because the country, after the various revolutions, has been run for the benefit of the people. Now, that's fine, but I feel as though this is going to be absolutely crucial, and many people will be looking at this, and if he is forced to stand down, then a lot of doubts will be brought to the surface about whether or not the rest of France can be brought to reform. In other words, long lunch hours, more than an hour, working at weekends, all these kind of things that are an irritant for the rest of the world as it moves on to 24/7 doesn't take place in France. So basically, if the workers win, it will be Macron's loss.
Well, thank you very much, Michael Wilson, for giving us the global business update for today. Communications group MTN says it doesn't owe any taxes to the Ghanaian government, despite being hit with a charge of $773 million. The firm's CEO spoke to Arise business correspondent Rutus Odiri at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. He began by asking if the telecommunications sector is recession-proof.
The discussion here at Davos around recessions is that actually for developed markets, maybe the prospects for 2023 will be better than we thought of, maybe 2 or 3 months ago. It looks like in some countries it will be either very shallow recessions or actually recessions will be avoided completely. However, in the markets we operate in, Africa, I think it will be a little bit more challenging. There's still going to be some socio-economic and challenges coming out of the crises that we've come out of. COVID, firstly the pandemic, then we had the war in Ukraine, and you have heightened inflation in many markets. So I think we're going to find that in the markets we operate as MTN, things will be too challenging. Having said that, I think the telecommunications sector should have a lot more resilience. The services that we offer, these are in demand. People need to get connected. 1 out of 2 Africans still doesn't have a smartphone. So the job to connect people, I think, is going to be, continuing to accelerate. So it's not that we are recession-proof. I think we will have, in general, a much more resilient performance in a macro that is still going to be challenging across the African markets.
What is going on with governments around the world that are strapped for cash, trying to hit MTN up for money? I'm talking about the Ghanaian government that we all know has a revenue and debt problem, coming out of nowhere with a $773 million back tax bill for MTN Ghana. What is your stance on that? Are you responding to them?
Look, I think we must separate the issues. There's 2 issues, and I think I touched it in the first question, really around that, given the polycrises that we're facing globally, our African markets are going to get hit, and the pain will be felt more severely in Africa than anywhere else, I would argue. So, you're talking about Ghana, but I think it's not just Ghana, it's many markets. Egypt is facing the challenges, Ethiopia, Zambia, Ghana, and the list could go on. So I think we must first recognize that there is a big issue where the African continent has to think about how does it get out of this challenge. And I would argue that the Africans must figure it out for themselves, business, government, and broader society. So Ghana is caught up in all of this, as many other countries are. I think the second question is you raising really is about MTN, and with respect to the, the tax assessment that we've, that's been, we've our communication, which we released last Friday, as well as an investor call on this Monday past, is that, firstly, for us, taxes due had been paid, and we stand by that position. We are going to constructively engage the authorities in Ghana on this, and we are seeking, we hope that we can find a resolution to the matter. But we are quite resolute that we believe the taxes due were paid. We're holding no provision, no contingent liability. That's how strongly we feel. There's an independent report, and the reports that would stand and substantiate our position. But it's an ongoing matter, but we look forward to constructively engaging with the authorities in Ghana over the next 2 to 3 weeks.
The internet service provider space is really heating up, and I want to get your thoughts on Elon Musk's Starlink that is making inroads in Nigeria. Are you nervous? How are you responding to that?
No, we're not nervous as MTN Group or MTN Nigeria. I mean, we think that over the medium to long term, you're going to have connectivity anchored by 3 forms of technology. Subsea cables that I think that will give us the connectivity across markets and continents. You're going to continue to see investments there. Terrestrial networks like ours, wireless carriers, as well as fixed networks on the ground. I think you're going to see investment. And you're going to continue to see investments in low Earth orbit satellites such as Starlink. There are others, OneWeb, and others that I think you're going to find continuously coming. So the way we see it is that this is a complementary technology. 5 to 10 years out, wherever we are in the world, we're always going to be online. You're never going to be, going out, deep into Kaduna State in Nigeria and say, I've got no connectivity. Because if your terrestrial network is not working, your device will automatically attach to satellite. That world is coming. So the way we see this is that it's complementary. The average African, cannot afford the price points that Starlink is offering at the moment. We understand the technology will improve and the cost curves will come down. But from our position that optical fiber transmission is going to be superior to satellite for a long time. But what satellite has is that it can get to the deep rural areas and where the network is shut down because of power shortages. You will have power in space. So I think that the key thing is it's going to be a complementary technology, and you're going to see us, terrestrial networks such as ours, partnering, with space operators over time.
We understand that MTN is working with a company that helps people with disabilities in South Africa called Convo. Can you tell us more about the pilot project that the two of you are working on?
No, look, we're always looking at figuring out through technology how do we enable and give people better lives. Disabled people, have constraints that limit their ability to live as full a life as others, abled people would. So what we are looking at there is to figure out, how do we use the technology to basically improve their lives and create opportunities for themselves to build their own businesses. That's where we are focusing our technology. But I think you'll hear more of that over time. It's something that we're pretty excited about.
Finally, I just want to get your outlook, I guess, on the telecommunications sector in 2023. How do you see things playing out, I guess, globally, Africa in total?
Yeah, I remain pretty excited about, the telecommunications sector. There is still, particularly in Africa, a massive job to do to drive digital inclusion. As I said, basically 1 out of 2 Africans doesn't have a smartphone. And as long as they don't have a smartphone, they don't have access to the internet and the benefits of the internet. So we, are pretty bullish about, the sector going into 2023. We understand that the macro will be very challenging for many of our consumers and the markets that we operate in. But we can bring, 2 nation states the digital infrastructure that can help Africa leapfrog some of the challenges. We're going to be putting $2 billion of capex into our networks across the various markets we're operating. We're sustaining our level of capex because we really believe in the opportunity. 1/3 of that will be going to Nigeria specifically. I mean, we're very excited about Nigeria and the growth prospects there. Mobile money are growing off our communications business. So we remain, bullish about the telco sector, and that we should be able to see, very good growth and new customers coming on to our networks for the very first time. We remain excited.
Reuters there with Ralph Mupita, Group CEO and President MTN. Reuters getting some great interviews at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Well, the annual summit in Davos attracts business leaders and policymakers from around the world. Arise business correspondent Rota Sodiri spoke to the governor of the Reserve Bank of South Africa, Lesedia Kyangiago, and began by asking if he believes there will be a global recession in 2023 and whether South Africa could be vulnerable.
South Africa is a small, open economy. We are integrated into the global economic system. We are a major exporter of commodities. The question that would come is, if a recession sets in, what does it mean for commodity prices? What does the opening up of China mean for global growth? What does it mean for inflation? And what does it mean for commodity prices? Those are the big questions that we are going to have to grapple with. South Africa faces its own risks, and those risks have to do with our long-standing structural constraints. And add to that the fact that inflation has been rising globally, and in South Africa it had also been rising. On the domestic front, we started early to adjust policy to deal with inflation. On the global side, the developed economies moved a little bit late.
Is monetary policy enough to bring inflation down in South Africa, for instance?
Monetary policy is what has to be implemented to deal with inflation, irrespective of whether that inflation is coming from overseas or is coming from the domestic sources. The way in which we deal with it is that we look at the external shocks to the inflation outlook and then ask ourselves the question, are these shocks temporary? If they are temporary, we do nothing. If the shocks are lasting or they lead to second round effects in the domestic price formation, then we are forced to act. And so we were not sure when we started in 2021 to tighten policy. We were moving gradually, and then we saw evidence that the prices are starting to spread beyond just the energy shock and the food price shock, and that they are starting to spread to other prices. And in that instance, then monetary policy has got to act.
Okay, so year-on-year inflation, we saw it come down from 7.4% in November to actually from 7.6% in October to 7.4% in November. So would you say that your monetary tightening has been working?
Too early to tell. If you see what is happening, this would be in respect of the actions that were taken at least 12 months ago, not the most recent ones, because monetary policy works with a lag. The reading that we saw yesterday had just confirmed that 7.8 that we saw 5 months ago was definitely the peak, and now we have seen 4 consecutive months of a decline in inflation. The only problem is when this inflation went up, it went up like a rocket. And when it is coming down, it's like it's on a very slow-moving escalator. What is important is the trend. And for us as the central bank, we would like to see that inflation declining towards the midpoint of the inflation target range. And that is what would give us comfort that it would protect the incomes of the poor.
Okay, and final question for you, Governor. What is your outlook for the South African economy for the year 2023?
The outlook for 2023 is going to be very challenging. What we have seen over the past 3 years have been the shocks that the South African economy had been exposed to, whether it had been load shedding, whether it had been COVID, whether it had been the floods, that the South African economy has demonstrated incredible resilience. And last year, so many of the quarters on the growth front surprised on the upside. And I'm not surprised that some of the market commentators actually believe that 2022 GDP outcome could be better than what the central bank has done. Said. But that is in the past. The challenge is going to be 2023, and it's anybody's call.
Well, Rochus Udiri there, Arise News correspondent, reporting from the World Economic Forum in Davos. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll be talking to Professor Udenta, a scholar, founding National Secretary of the Alliance for Democracy, AD. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
As you adjust to the new realities for operating your business and engaging with your customers, let us help you transform your business into a digital powerhouse capable of adapting and taking advantage of today's opportunities. With our best-in-class array of digital solutions, you can conduct your business, receive payments from your customers, and perform transactions quickly, safely, and conveniently, because we've got you covered with the right people, technology, and service offerings. Contact us today and let us take your business to its zenith. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
I'm about to serve better breakfast.
If you're in Lagos, you need to see this.
I'm not just streaming content, I'm just escaping traffic.
Get more data to enjoy exclusive content. Dial *141# now.
Airtel, the smartphone network. My brother, my sister, do you know that winning an election is not only about getting the majority vote? For that your candidate to be declared winner of the election, he or she must secure 25% of the vote in 2/3 of all states plus the FCT to be president, and 25% of the vote in 2/3 of all local governments of a state to be governor. This is constitutional, and every presidential candidate has had to pass this threshold. Even governors have had to make this mark to get elected in their states. We live in one country with different languages, religions, and ethnic groups. This is why it is not enough to have only northern votes, or southern votes, or eastern votes, or western votes. The only way to get elected as president or governor is by gaining enough support across the country and states. Let us make sure that we know now so that we don't cause an issue tomorrow. This message is brought to you by the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, with support from the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We've witnessed political campaigns like no other this election season, as political parties have been firing on all cylinders as we approach the presidential election next month. For the first time in Nigerian politics, it is not a two-horse race between the top two political parties. However, the strong favorites still remain the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, and the main opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, with the Labour Party and New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, coming on their heels. Joining us on this show this morning to discuss the state of Nigerian politics and the 2023 general election is Professor Udenta, a founding National Secretary of the Alliance for Democracy. Welcome to the morning show, Professor Udenta.
Thank you, Dr. Ruben, and then thank you, Ayo, too. Well, if I were there in Lagos, I would chop knuckles, but I can only wave my hand and say, I thank you to be here. I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah, good to have you on the program. But just before we go into the details of our conversation, let me ask you, because I know you've been involved in politics long before now, are you affiliated to any of the current campaigns for office in 2023 general elections?
I'm not yet affiliated to any of the campaigns, and that's a circumstance that can change rather quickly. But as a Nigerian patriot, and I consider myself equally a nationalist and a statesman in this particular republic, I have a stake in the outcome of this election. I have a stake in the future of democracy. I have a stake in the survival of the Nigerian state. Dr. Ruben, let me take you back to Ngugi wa Thiong'o. You know him very well as I do. He wrote a book called Writers in Politics. I can reframe it as citizens in politics. No citizen can escape the political pressures and pulls and forces of his or her time. What he can elect is what kind of politics to play, what kind of dimension of it, what kind of perspective. Politics of the rich or the poor, or the oppressed or the oppressors. But every citizen must engage. That is what I'm engaging. And for good measure, let me give you a little bit of context and background. I was a senior lecturer at the age of 30, 1995 or 6, and I was going to be assessed as an associate professor in 1998. Nigerian political process, the democratization struggle, put an end to all that. Before I could finish my assessment, I was already spending 5 months in detention on a cold cement floor. That was the 6th spell. Subsequently, I became the founding secretary of Alliance for Democracy, as you put out in your intro. And before I finished up, secretary of the Board of Trustees. I was the secretary of the Alliance Committee of APP and AD, and the summit of the 2 political parties. And I led the AD team, at Ijebode when Bashikola Detona tried to bring the 2 parties together. That's a long time ago. And that's what before Obasanjo Atiku was sworn in 1999. So as the Secretary of Alliance for Democracy, I superintended directly with the process that produced every single entity, every governor, every senator, every rep. I supervised it. All the records are with me in safekeep from 1998-99. So I have a stake in this democracy, its functioning, its direction or trajectory. And it's important for citizens like us who have given our all to the country to step forward now. But today I speak in measured tones because I haven't taken the gloves off, not being partisanly inclined. But if I'm going to be partisan down the line towards the election, the gloves will be off, Ruben.
All right. Well, thank you for just sharing your antecedents and the role you've played in the political history of Nigeria. But I'd like to ask you, Professor, as the founding secretary of the Alliance for Democracy, why are you not in APC? It should be your natural political home, shouldn't it?
Well, APC ought to be my natural political home, but Alliance for Democracy was an ideologically formulated entity. It grew out of that convulsive period in which we struggled for democracy, in which a lot of people lost their lives. Many went into exile. Some spent time in detention. Others disappeared today without being accounted for. So when the party was put together, it was with that robust civil society intent in rescuing this country. APC is not Alliance for Democracy. APC is a special purpose vehicle. It's a contraption. It is just an institutional design for people to attain power. And having attained power 6-7 years ago, 7-8 years ago, that power has been abused. So I'm an ideologically minded individual. I left Alliance for Democracy as Secretary of Board of Trustees in 2001, and I've never joined a single political party then. It's important that I deposit this fact. I've never belonged to a party from 2001 to date. I've played part in the political process. I've engaged in projects. But my primary consideration is the health of our democracy and protection of civil liberties. So I take this opportunity at the onset to throw this note of warning. Bola Tinubu, for example, went on exile because of the excesses of the Abacha government in repressing press freedom, in burning down media institutions. I spent 6 times in detention 6 times for the same reason. For All Progressive Congress under his campaign organization to hound the media, not because I'm on a right studio. If on TVC studio, I made this point with passion. Or the studios of the nation, talking to people, being interviewed. Journalists shouldn't be handled under any consideration. People like us worship the freedom of the media and the press. Press Council, NBC, meetings of part of elders of this particular domain. For what purpose? That's how he went on exile. Because of his life. That's why he went into detention. So for his own media team, for the PCC of the APC, to hound the media to no end, is regrettable. It's intolerable, and it's something which I have to put out right there before we go into the deeper conversation about the politics of 2023 and the likelihood of the presidential election swinging one way or the other.
Okay, in the introduction, I mentioned 4 names, 4 presidential candidates. Atiku Abubakar of the PDP, Tinubu of the APC, Peter Obi of the Labour Party, and Rabiu Kwankwanso of the New Nigeria People's Party. If we were to assess these candidates individually, what's your take on their chances?
My take is very simple at this stage. I don't know what is going to form in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. 24 hours in politics is a lifetime. But as it stands now, Let me begin with Atiku Abubakar, PDP. He will win the next election for the following reasons. The convergence of national forces are now slowly building around him. He's been very long in the business, for 30 odd years. This will be the combination of his years of building bridges, networks, alliances at the level of the elite that can filter down to the masses. Secondly, the abject performance of the APC government is plainly ridiculous. I won't talk about the tragedies of the moment, poverty capital of the world, out of school children, ungoverned spaces exploding before our very eyes, fault lines deepening, fractures and features of the nation comprehensively collapsing. And most crucially, he's favored by geography and demography. What do I mean by that? There's always a preponderance of opinion now that P2B of Labour Party will do extremely very well in the Southeast, without a single governor backing him, without a single senator or a member of the Reps, of the House of Representatives, without the local government infrastructure. And there's a preponderance of opinion too that Tinubu of APC will likely win the Southwest. So what makes anybody think that he will not win the entire North? If P2B will win the South without a single governor, why would the people take the North? That is a primal instinct that drives Nigerian politics. It's a bit irrational and sometimes illogical, but that's where we are. The Enlightenment spirit can still propel us to a better mode of leadership production beyond primordial loyalties. But as it stands now, if the North heaves in a tectonic shift, and what wouldn't they? He's going to win. For P2B, I look at he and his obedient movement as an incomplete revolution. The incompleteness of that revolutionary eruption wouldn't have matured sufficiently to come together with all the integers that give power in February 2023. So he will fall short. But the energy, the dynamism which he has evoked in the system, which Bukola Saraki, former Senate President, talked about when he was on this show, that the Southeast is PDP's main challenge because of the labor that Obi has put out there. There are two forces shaping its own momentum. One, the disruptive spirit of Nigerian youth with some discontented elite, and that sense of historical restitution which the Southeast will require. That is why the Southeast is now a contest of heart and head. The heart is the obedient heart of Obi. The head is that of Atiku. So when there's a convergence in order to build the political soul of the Southeast, the two will share that zone. But the will do extremely well. That is why anybody in PDP, in APC, must look at that process that is building, that momentum, with sensitivity and empathy. Because we need a policy of inclusion. Even when Atiku wins election, it must bring the obedient, Obi and the obedient movement into the fold quickly, in that sense of unification. Same with APC and Bola Tinubu. Coming to APC and Bola Tinubu, it's plainly obvious that the irrational instinct that drives Nigerian politics is why APC stays standing as a contending force. Given the history of the past 7 or 8 years, there's no way we can deodorize the sense of loss of the nation, the weakening of our historic spirit, the decomposition of the post-colonial before our very eyes. From the Boko Haram in the Northeast, pinned down within that tiny zone in 2014, with its internal domestic wing decapitated by the Jonathan government and external forces coming through the Maghreb from Libya. Today, we're not contending with that alone. We're contending with banditry across the entire North, separatist agitation in the Southeast and the South-South, oil bunkering and steel in the Southwest, a collapse in national economy, a currency that has gone high wire, and even the party fighting even the CBN governor to stand still. What he's doing is best to rescue the legacy of Muhammad Buhari. That's number one. Number two is what I can call the transmogrification of our friend Bola Tinubu from a mortal to a god. When he moved from the realms of mortality with the frailties and inadequacies and vulnerabilities all of us have to becoming a god. Not just a Milokun, I may not get the pronunciation very well, but that sense of a Lehi, with which he described Dakbo, Abiodun, this one. People like us who are Secretary of Alliance for Democracy, I can tell him too, hey, Lehi, who the hell were you by 1998, 99? I've given you the background. And most importantly, by de-deifying Bola Tinubu, by stripping him of that sense of false divinity, and by restoring him to the carnality of mortality back to earth, in a defeat, will be very purgatory for the nation. My final comment on APC in this regard is that the sense of atavism within the party is destroying the country. A CBA governor is hiding from pillar to post, not from a PDP or from Labour Party. He's hiding from the same forces in APC and the government of Muhammad Buhari, who is striving very valiantly in the dying days with the dying embers of his government to rescue his legacy already consumed in smoke. For Kwankwaso, the momentum is not as much as I thought he will have. Initially, there's that big force around him, that court followership, that sense of charisma. But it's shrinking if the data available is anything to go back. And it's shrinking because of the demography and geography I talked about. Who the hell knows how the APC governors will behave or what they will do? Who the hell knows whether the masses will listen to them? If Kwankwaso is shrinking and we cannot predict with any sense of assurance the behavior of the APC governors across the north, it's Atiku's day and it's an election to win.
All right, thank you for your analysis. In your view, Professor Udenta, I'm sure that Dr. Kwankwaso will beg to differ. In his speech at Chatham House yesterday, he had mentioned that his party and his person has national appeal, and perhaps he is the best candidate to win in terms of experience and track record to win the presidential elections. A few things around that. But you mentioned about Mr. Peter Obi that one of the things that he has going for him is the discontented elite. And so I'd like to ask you, because there's a growing talk about building elite consensus post-2023 election for state survival. Now, do you subscribe to that framework?
Well, the framework shouldn't even be elite consensus. The framework should be national consensus. In building national consensus, you transcend the threshold of the elite. You must embrace the domain, the dimension of the mass. In 1998-99, we crafted the elite consensus. I told you, if you read B.C. Akonde's My Participations, he said there, Udenta moved the motion that ended APP. I didn't move any motion. I gave 3 proclamations that Shinkafi and Mahmoud Waziri couldn't follow up with. So I ended APP. I did. If you look at what I told you about when we came back as AD and APP to form a unified rank against PDP, I was secretary of that party with Tanko Yakasai as a chairman. That's a elite consensus we're building. When Zive had to step down for Falaye, as I said in previous discussions, Falaye didn't beat Bola again Ibadan to become candidate of AD. He had to come to Abuja to ratify that. And Dr. Chukwuemeka Zive could have beaten him hands down. I have the records. 99.9% of AD files and documents are in my safe keep. I would later yield it to National Archives, but for now they're with me. So I speak with authority on this. So he stepped down, and the Dr. Bonion, who won the primary of APP, stepped aside. We didn't even look at him. We built that consensus in order to have that restitution of historical injustice against the southwest of Anabiola. And PDP did the same. As the Kwame lost the election, he embraced Obasanjo. So we had some sense of elite energy coming together. So when the government was formed by Obasanjo and Atiku in 1999, they quickly established an office of inter-party collaboration or inter-party affairs with Mahmoud Waziri the first special advisor, almost with the cabinet rank in a position. And they brought in elements within the AD, brought in Uncle Bola Ige, they brought in Dutwa Dalaja, this daughter of late Abraham Adesanya, as part of that AD team in that government, including late SK Babalola from Ekiti State. Mahmoud Waziri became a special advisor, and then Mohammed Shatta became Minister of Interior. That's some level of elite consensus. We're going to look at national consensus in 2023. When Atiku wins and is sworn in, he must build a consensus among the ranks of everybody. He must bring in P2B and the obedient movement together into his own domain. He must bring in Bola Tinubu and the rump of the progressive wing of the APC. He must bring in Kwankwaso and his team and other candidates too. He must reach out to labor, to civil society, to the media. He must protect press freedom, which APC is not doing. He must ensure that traditional rulers and key stakeholders across the country come on board in a massive conversation. He may even have to establish a committee on national unification. So if you don't unify the intelligence here, bring in the military industrial complex into it and the private sector and labor, and the political elite, it can never have peace. And without peace, the country can make progress. Conflict is of two modes. The organic conflict you find, insurgency in the southeast, one nation movement in the southwest, Boko Haram in the northeast. But there's some constructed conflicts which are spawned by the elite because of the sense of detachment from a system when they feel discontented. So I don't subscribe just to merely elite consensus. You must build national consensus so they don't have a trickle-down effect, a very top-heavy and a very weak base. The base must be strengthened as we tried to do it in 1998-99, when we tried to purify the political system from all the incrustations and oddities that Abacha infused in it. When we brought out people from obscurity and made them governors and senators and reps, and some of them today have become gods before our very eyes. That is the sense of national consensus building. That's the sense of unification of the soul in order to heal or bind the wounds of division. This country is sorely divided. And that is why, whether I'm partisan or not, I have a compelling duty to weigh in. I should have been a professor in 1999, but it didn't happen because of Nigeria. I took a bus every two times a week for 3 years with swollen legs, discussing with international organizations, impasses, how to build this democracy, not how to make money. When people like Ayo Adebanjo speaks, whatever decision he has taken, I respect him because he has paid his dues. And there are those today who have become God that don't even remember the old man again. They should venerate the very feet he walks, like the rest across the country. So, and again, let me put it this way. The politics of the now is different from the politics of the past 20, 25 years or even beyond. When we had the conversation, supervised and superintended by Wujale, I led the AD team with Oyegu, Chief Oyegu, Chukwemeke Zife, far older than me, former governors. With Professor Yusuf Maman, Twin Oluwabayi, Bokna Kere, Bokna, and Les Michelia. And the PDP team was jointly led by Bamanga Tuko and later by Dabu Shirama, with late Sonda Woniyi as a member, with Yochia Yukuri chairman of PDP as a member, with Jerry Gana as a member, Open Mode, the party as a member. We were there in order to build some sense of a new nation, a new dawn. We didn't care about class differentials or political affiliations, ideological tendencies or divides. The primary consideration was patriotism, how to rescue this country. Today, all that is gone. Yes, Dr. Bati, I'm listening.
Yeah, let's look at some of the stakeholders, in the current process. The media, particularly. Mahmoud Yakubu, the INEC chairman, was talking about collaboration, inclusiveness, and all of that. But one of the major highlights as we begin to count down to the general elections has been the role of the media. And some commentators have said that, yes, the media has a constitutional role under Section 22, under Section 39 of the 1999 Constitution. But some of these politicians and their spokespersons, they appear to have been intimidating media houses, journalists, engaging in unnecessary mudslinging, in my view. What do you think is the implication of this for free speech and civil liberties?
The implication is there for the country. Therefore, my own take is a dire warning. At the beginning, I did say that Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, my longtime good friend, went into exile because of the situation he just described under the military. He ran for his dear life. I spent spells of detention 6 times in Nigeria. The last was for 3-4 months, if I recall correctly. I didn't shave for 3 months. I didn't take my bath for 2 months. Not because I stole money, I was fraudulent. I was fighting not only for democratic restoration, but for media rights and civil liberties. That is why I would love to sit down with people from the nation in the newspapers in the past 6 months. Go check it. Next time I'm on any show, I'll come with 20 copies, back copies. It's obsessed with PDP. Everything the front page. Nobody has taken them to the cleaners. That is what it should be. That's their own ideological affiliation and tendency. You can quarrel with it so long as they do it within the bounds of the law. TVC, of course, is cured in favor of the candidate who owns it, but then that is what it should be. People like us venerate press freedom as religion. That is why the American Constitution is one of the primary amendments. So what the chairman of INEC said is important media collaboration, but when you write letters to press council, to state media organizations of their rights to exist, when it throws journalists out of functions because we want to record the function, not a live feed, is it a court meeting? Is it a darkened room with cloak and dagger kind of politics you don't want people to see? Journalistic excesses are sometimes very well tolerated because the moment you take away that primary power of the media to hold accountable all of us, especially those in power and those in government, the mighty, then society is gone. So that sense of illiberalism and authoritarianism, which has infected the our political conversation now and driven viciously by the Presidential Council of APC, must end. Enough is enough.
All right.
So partisanship has boundaries and thresholds it cannot cross.
Okay,
this is one of them. The search for power is not an end in itself, but an opportunity to do good for the greater number of people in the society. And media is part of that wider conversation of building democracy in an incremental, brick by brick, block by block method. So I share the grief and the pain of the media.
All right, thank you, Professor. Now, let me go back to your earlier statement when you were, or your review of the frontliners or the top contenders for the presidential election. We talked about APC, PDP, Labour Party, and the NNPP. And you talked about, your analysis of this was largely based on popularity and the mark they've made in different regions in Nigeria. However, in terms of track record, in terms of what they have done, case in point, the APC. The APC is the party in government at the moment. And so you'd imagine that your analysis should also be based on what they've been able to achieve in the last 8 years, alongside the others in terms of what they've done. Do you think the APC has an advantage?
Sure.
In light of in light of the fact that they're the government in power and the party in power, and also what they've done for Nigerians in the last 8 years?
I know President Muhammad Buhari is very eager for his legacy to be continued. And I said it every now and then. I will run a free election show. It's one of my legacies to leave the office with this coming election, the best ever. But I love somebody who will protect my legacy, my achievements, who will continue from there. The best person to do that is Bola Tinubu for APC, because he is going to run as the third term of Muhammad Buhari, the way Hillary Clinton was to run as the third term of Barack Obama. Obama is place in history diminishing because Hillary didn't win. So Bola Tinubu is Buhari's own image, his shadow. He's going to run as the Buhari man who has to grant his vision in a third term. But we hear of Lagos, what is done in Lagos from beginning to the end. How Lagos in the Victorian times that MJC Cheru wrote, Victorian Lagos. Go read that book. How Lagos was during the Victorian era. Go even read the novels of Cyril Quincy, Lokotown, and other stories. People of the city to see Lagos of the 30s and 40s and 50s. What Jakonde did. Look at what Marwa did, who I'm sure may even beat some of these former governors if he goes for election today in Lagos. So when we talk about Lagos as the springboard for the success of APC, it means the denial of Buhari's own space and place in history. It means that APC candidate and his team, they are frightened about the specter of failure that will haunt them because of the specter of failure that has haunted the Buhari administration. And I said the president is struggling very hard in the dying embers of his government in order to rescue whatever he could of his own legacy. And APC, they know it, that they cannot run with Buhari as a tailwind, rather is a headwind. That means that the legacy of the past 8 years is the legacy of woes and failures, legacy of anguish and pain for the people. It's that kind of legacy that threw up the obedient movement and P2B from obscurity into now being a major contender for power. So if you take that as a major tissue in the conversation, in doing some aggregations, pulling aggregation to say what kind of forces will shape this election, what kind of elements is going to come together to provide victory. The APC record will never provide victory for Bola Tinubu. That is why he doesn't want to talk about it. That's why we talk about what he did in Lagos. That is obscure kind of thing, deflection. Deflect away from what is clear, that you are running for Buhari's third term, precisely for his third term. So when Nigerians vote for APC, they're voting for Buhari. In 2023, they're not voting for Bola Tinubu APC. Because without Bola Tinubu winning, Buhari's legacy is lost. He's the one to cement it in a 12-year cycle. 4 years, 4 years, and 4 years. Historically, that is what scholars always look at, the period in which you can say the trajectory of performance can be measured up to become irreversible. But it cannot run on the poverty capital of the world. It can't run on the collapsing nation state and exploding in the fault lines. Ongoing space is multiplying every day. It can't run when insurgencies and banditry and killings and slaughters and economy that is wobbling is the legacy you have. No government is without some measure of success. Let me rebalance that. Buhari has done his bit. But APC should equally recognize has done his own bit and said, we build on your bit. But they don't want to build on his bit. They want to build on some mythical thing that Bola Tinubu did, beyond what Jack Conde did, beyond what Marwa, even of the military era, did. You want to build on something we know to have existed in Lagos. The West African Cosmopolitan Center, the megalopolis of Lagos, was their hub. That brought together a sense of not only cultural and intellectual dynamism. Mr. Parin, N.S. Ikolide, Nnamdi Azikiwe, and the rest of them, the springboard for the struggle against colonial imperialism and restoration of our statehood and sovereignty in 1960, crystallized around Lagos. And we're hearing some mythical fables and tales of what he did in 1999 to 2007 as the basis to win election in 2023. That is shocking to say the least. So take that element out of the table quickly. What I said is not based on popularity. If you listen to me carefully, I said two elements are at the heart of the obedient movement. A sense of disruption which the youth has brought to bear to say, we don't belong in this system, we feel excluded, let us be part of it. He seems to be singing our song. And that sense of historical restitution for justice and equity, the Southeast crave. And as I said, sometimes my heart speaks to that, but I have my head that will guide me, that revolution is an incomplete exercise, that the eruption will not mature enough to win. Satiku will win. That doesn't mean the PDP the team should be complacent and say he has won, but he's going to win. And when that happens, he must build a nation out of the weight of these passions we have now. He must even embrace his foes. So when I talk about the geography and demography helping him, take that in context.
Professor
APC will likely win the Southwest. Yes.
Udenta, I didn't know that you had added prophesying to your many qualifications and crystal ball gazing because you are so emphatic. I think we will win. But let me ask you this, which was an issue I raised in my column on Tuesday at the back page of this day newspaper. This electoral process has been so toxic. There's so much desperation. The language has been foul and abusive. But this election will be won and lost at the end of the day. How do we heal the divisions? How do we achieve reconciliation? How do we take the nation through a process of healing after the election has been won and lost?
Okay, now, I know when Dr. Bati, my good friend, he laughed and said, am I a prophet? As I said, I'm speaking today with the gloves on. I'm speaking today with dispassion in spite of my strong words. If I'm to join any of the campaigns, maybe the PDP campaign, I'll take the gloves off and then you see what the conversation is all about. We have come of age in Nigeria, and we dare people to think that our space in this country is small. No, it is not small. As for the dirtiness of the politics, it's always to be expected. That's why, what is that dirtiness but the media? Dr. Bati and I, if you don't have the media, we don't talk about the dirtiness, about the toxicity of the politics, about how it's become terrible. It's the media. If everybody will stay in his house and do his campaign and that they vote, we will not even know how toxic it is. But you must allow that sense of toxicness to endure because of the passion we have for press freedom. But I do know that even in the US, sometimes far more toxic than we have in Nigeria. But at the end of the day, when I use the term to bind the wounds of division, I don't know who said it first. That was one of the opening lines of Donald Trump's victory speech 2016. It is now time to bind the wounds of division. He didn't call Hillary Clinton this woman. He didn't call her this jailbird going to jail. He said, Secretary Hillary Clinton, I hear your pain and that of your people. I will include you. So I expect that after this dust is settled and the media is calm and the politicians are sober, less irrational and less illogical, that sense not just of elite consensus and building, as a building block for national restart, but that of national consensus in order to accommodate everybody else must become a priority. And as I said, if Atiku were to win, At the end of the day, he must think in terms of, I'm not speaking for the campaign organization, he must think in terms of having a high council for national reconciliation and unification, where you bring in everybody, go to the neck of the party, take some mandate from them and bring everybody on board, reanimate what you did with Obasanjo in 1999 in inter-party office. That's why as language even multiply in intensity and ferocity, and as everybody's weighing in with a sense of passion, sometimes reckless passion, we must know, as you said correctly, Dr. Ruben, there's going to be light shower at the end of the thunderstorm. The fireballs that is politics now must calm. The roaring flames in the earth of our land must equally be calm. The ashes will not be important, but they will be ashes of peace. So after the election successfully delivered and the government is formed, we become one as a nation. It is now governance time, no longer political time. But APC played politics for 8 years and lost the nation. And I can assure you, we lose the next election.
All right, so as we gradually get to the to election date, February 25, Nigerians will go out to make their choice as to who should be the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. What would you say, Professor Udenta, are the priority areas for the president to face? I mean, we've talked about economy, the debt profile of Nigeria, we've looked at security, but I'd like you, since you've been able to, from experience, give your judgment as to who would emerge or who could potentially emerge as president. I'd like you to say, in view of these top issues, who is best suited and why?
Okay, well, let me even not talk about who is best suited and so on, because it's very important. I would break it into two. The best suitedness of a candidate may be sense of preparation, equally with a sense of urgency, and then being fully aware of national expectations. Every candidate comes with some bag of, not just expectations, of talents and assets and skill set. Take PDB, for example. He's good with figures. He talks about it. He said he's prudent. Some people say stingy. He's, actually, he has inflamed the political environment with his policy options and choices. So people can say, oh, he was just a governor in a state, but then he has what it takes to become president and do very well. Bola Tinubu, with all the strong words he had for me today, was a governor for 8 years, and then he built some institutions there and built some human beings, have become vice president, become ministers, governors, and so on. So he has something coming. I think Abubakar has been hunting for this thing for long. And for somebody to be devoted in his lifetime, almost the entirety of his adulthood, in pursuit of a dream, it means there is something deep in his heart that he wants to give the country. He gave part of it as vice president for 8 years, effectively for 4 years actually, because the second term was very turbulent with his boss. Now that passion simply means he has a staying power. That staying power is a sense of persistence. That persistence is very key to unlocking maybe the potentials of the nation. And being the vice president the first time when the country was actually caught adrift from the international community to restore it back to sense of Committee of Nations and the sense of mission and purpose. And he did extraordinarily very well. Whether as an informal leader of the economic team or somebody the president rely on so much to help drive the economic agenda, he seemed to be best suited for the moment in terms of who has the adequacy of experience and exposure and the network to get things done. Having said that, my take is even that I'm not a policy wonk. Policies and what the people expect every day to happen to change their life in terms of education, which has crumbled under this government, in terms of health, which has crumbled too, in terms of security, which has crumbled too. That means human infrastructure that builds human security is gone. That's why the low, the human development index is very, very prevalent, and the multidimensional poverty is haunting the land. As important as these things are, I speak to my head. My head is what Karl Marx said. The history of hitherto existing society, history of class struggle, but all struggles are political struggle. If you don't get the politics right in Nigeria, as you people observe there, you cannot get the economy right. If you don't build national consensus, no matter the policy you have, you throw around there, it will not work. I thought about constructed conflict. You can have all the beautiful policies there. When the elites are disconnected and the masses are angry, it means that they're going to spoil the show for you. So the first step is to rebuild the country, to rescue the nation first, and then to try to see what they can unify the country. You have to bring in the elites in that level of conversation, then bring in the mass through robust dialogue, civil society, the media, and so on. The intelligentsia, look at ASO, bleeding. Every day being destroyed by this government, the academic staff of not only the universities but other high institutions. Look at labor, virtually fizzled out of existence. The government has a duty to even re-empower labor, to reanimate labor. The labor bureaucracy is not there. So when you don't have all these things in place, and then a fledgling in the private sector, which you have a lot of gurus, but very little in terms of content. All these things must come together in order to build a nation that is one. If you get it wrong at the political level, no matter what you do at the, both the macro and then in terms of macroeconomic policies, you will not get it right. No matter your physical regime, no matter the monetary issues you throw out there, the country is gone. So we are not going to allow 8 more years of this insufferable collapse, this slouching into Gomorrah. That's where we're slushing to Gomorrah. Okay. So we shouldn't allow that. We must cause that called a epistemic break or rupture in our history and say, this moment is a cutoff. Let's restart and let's relaunch.
You mentioned insecurity, and that's a source of major concern for many Nigerians and also for international observers. Professor Mahmood Yakubu, speaking at the Chatham House in London, said that they are coming up or they already have a violence mitigation and advocacy tool, which is supposed to be an app. All of this against the background of over 50 facilities of the INEC having been attacked, and there seems to be no let-up in this regard. Do you have any anxieties about insecurity, violence, derailing the electoral process?
There are always anxieties, but that is why you have a government in place. If you see what happened, I'm sure, Ruben, you recall this, I think you were in government then, in 2015, early 2015, when the then National Security Advisor, Colonel Sambo Dasuki, I think at Chatham House was when they dropped that hint that insecurity is a key driver of uncertainty in the electoral cycle 2015. And let us see what the government will do, what the president will come up with. At the end of the day, election was extended in order to clear the Northeast of certain problems there, insecurity problems, terrorist attacks in order to have election. Nobody's calling for any extension this time around, and that should be put to rest. There was a chairman of INEC Electoral Institute who muted that, and I'm happy the chairman of INEC turned down on it. This government has had enough time to put this in together. 2016, we had a technical defeat of Boko Haram. 2017, the same technical defeat of Boko Haram. He never got defeated. Banditry became infected with terrorism in the north. From cattle rustling and all manners of criminality, it became deeply embedded as cells of Boko Haram in the north and ISWAP. Then in the southeast and the south and the southwest, other levels of destructions are occurring. But elections have to hold, because if you do not want the election as scheduled, you are playing the script of the terrorists and the disruptors. You must do everything possible to protect institutional facilities of INEC, is secure and sensitive electoral materials. You must improve the personnel, because the people, if they are frightened, both the permanent staff and the ad hoc staff, the core members and so on there, if you overspokes them, they may not be able to do their job the way they should do it. So it's worrisome for me, but that worry should not escalate to the level in which we compromise the sanctity of the election. Election may not produce best outcomes of best governance model, but it's a method, of political and democratic sustenance and renewal. That means it is an ontology of the national conversation about power, politics and power. The absence of that ontological formulation, the identity of our democracy defined by the electoral process. So that process must be sanctified by holding this election as scheduled, and by INEC raising this timely warning to the security agencies to spend less time plotting destabilization, either of CBN or whatever, and focus more in tackling these odious situations that has befallen the country.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Udenta, for joining us on The Morning Show. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. It's time now for a short break on The Morning Show. When we return, we'll have Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni join us to review top stories in today's newspapers. Stay with us.
Emergencies happen when you least expect them to. It gets worse when you are cash-strapped. No need to despair. First Advance has you covered. You can get that urgent cash right now on First Advance. With First Advance, salary earners can get up to 50% of their salary. No hassles. As long as you earn a monthly salary and your salary account has been active for at least 2 months. It doesn't matter if you run a salary account with First Bank or any other bank. Just dial *894*11# or simply dial *894# on your mobile phone. What's more, when you open a First Bank salary account, you can enjoy 0 charges and free debit card issuance. Download the First mobile app on Play Store or App Store today. Log in to experience First Bank digital banking. Select loans, select First Advance, and follow the prompts to receive your loan. Don't let that urgent need get the best of you. Get First Advance now. It's as simple as dialing *894*11#. First Advance. Fast, convenient, secure. You first. First Bank.
Lagos has amassed more wealth than any other state in the country to be the most comfortable city to live in.
Now Lagos is earning 51 billion naira every month.
But even with all that money, this is the Lagos you have now. Bad roads filled with potholes, poor drainage system resulting in floods during rainy season, incessant traffic congestions, increased environmental pollution, poor healthcare system, large-scale child begging, poor security and increased crime rate, impunity of state government officials, lack of clean drinking water, poor transportation system. After years of empty promises, Lagos is now rated as the second worst city to live in the world. How long shall we continue like this? Lagos is not working. We want our Lagos back. Vote Dr. Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jandor as governor of Lagos State. Chafueko, fight for Lagos.
PDP, power to the people.
There are days when you think, oh, Mom, I don't try. Order a Glovo. Days when plans run longer. What if we order a Glovo? Or days when you can't control everything. Oh yes, because on Glovo you can order anything you want. Glovo, you order, we deliver.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning.
Yes, let's start the review with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. The lead story, NNPC road tax scheme. FEC, Federal Executive Council approves additional 1.9 trillion naira to reconstruct 44 roads. National Oil Company's intervention hits 2.52 trillion naira. Federal government to procure 31 vehicles worth 1.35 billion for Ogoni project monitoring. OK's police institutions bill. Yes, the Federal Executive Council very busy yesterday, chaired by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, awarding contracts, and of course, the tax scheme, which the NNPC has been involved in recently. This time, 1.9 trillion to construct 44 roads. I hope these roads will be evenly spread across the country. There are a number of federal roads that are in very bad shape. And we hope this government that has prided itself as providing infrastructure will fix all these bad roads before it leaves office. Of course, roads that readily come to mind, the Otabel-Kota Road, the Benin-Warri Federal Road, And of course, the Calabar Ikoripene Federal Highway. These are highways that are begging for attention. But as to the government being so busy in the twilight of this administration, Ruben, don't forget that there is the supplementary budget signed into law not too long ago. There is the rollover of the 2022 budget for another 3 months this year. And of course, there is the 2023 budget already signed into law. It doesn't really matter where the money is coming from, whether from loans, from foreign loans or ways and means. But work is going on, Ruben, and it will continue until this government leaves office. There's nothing like, I don't want to believe that there's something like lame duck administration. No, this administration will continue to work, and we hope they'll be working for Nigerians to the appreciation of one and all. Now, another story that tickles my fancy, if you will, in the front, and I'm sure many will want to hear this response from Tunde Bakare. Yes, I scored 0 in APC primary, but have true identity, integrity intact. Bakare replies, Tinubu, of course, recall Bakare was quoted as saying recently that he doesn't believe in this politics of entitlement, and he doesn't believe in primordial sentiments, a.k.a. Emilokon. And he got a response from the Tinubu side that, well, because he scored 0 votes at the APC primaries, perhaps it's affecting him, and that nothing serious will be attached to what a man who scored 0 in the primary said. But Tunde Bakare, politician, pastor politician, yes, who is the general overseer of the Citadel Global Community Church, responded, and he said, can someone tell these people that scoring 0 in a primary election with one's true identity and integrity intact, as well as having original credentials from well-known schools, primary, secondary, colleges and universities within and outside this nation, are a veritable badge of honor, absolutely legit and unquestionable? Tunde Bakare, pastor, politician, replying Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu there. Now, the Guardian newspaper, $1 billion anti-terrorism spending poses on Buhari's security success. Mweze, how over-invoicing, lack of transparency make nation unsafe. No price too high to pay for political stability. Retired Deputy IGP justifies anti-terrorism funding. Insecurity worse under current administration. Sislak insists. Now, according to The Guardian, perceived gap between result and the President Muhammadu Buhari's $1 billion spending on anti-terrorism is drawing shock reaction from stakeholders who insist that the country is not any safer today than it was at any time in its history. Yes, talking about efforts, spending, and results. Yes, so much spent, but the result is that there is widespread insecurity in the land, far more than when the president took over for the first time in 2015. That Nigerians can attest to. Now, the Daily Trust newspaper, wrong choices responsible for Nigeria's woes. Kwankwanso, why major talks with Obi collapsed. Win your polling units, get appointment contracts. Atiku tells PDP members, reject my husband after 4 years if he underperforms. Remi Tinubu, the wife of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, potential first lady, is the one making that statement. Don't vote along ethno-religious lines. Peter Obi, the Labour Party flag bearer. Now, the New Telegraph newspaper, federal government to fast-track fuel subsidy removal from June to April, says COVID-19 delayed initial decision to ensure cost does not exceed 3.23 trillion naira. Yes, the Minister of Finance yesterday, of course, that interview, exclusive, all the way from the World Economic Forum, was aired on Arise TV yesterday, and many newspapers have picked that point. The minister saying the government may, yes, I underline that word, may start the gradual removal of fuel subsidy from April, where it's like the minister has been listening to this program a lot, where we have canvassed that if we say we need the funds being spent on subsidy right now for other critical areas, and the government of the day has agreed on that, why kick the can down the road for the next administration? But whether the minister was speaking her own mind on, or that of the government of the day, left to be seen, because she said may be. Now, of course, the Vanguard newspaper has that story also. Gradual removal of petrol subsidy starts April, federal government. Now, above the masthead of the Vanguard newspaper, Oshodi, Apapa gridlock, touts extorting us, have Lagos government's backing. Truckers, freight forwarders are the ones saying that. Yes, talking about Apapa Watch, Vanguard that is located in that area, and they feel the pinch every day of the gridlock. Yesterday, it was reported by Vanguard that the police is saying that they have lost control of the situation on Apapa gridlock. I remember the governor of this state, when he came, Sanwo-Olu, yes, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, he said in 6 months he will end Apapa gridlock. And he made a visit, rolling up his sleeves physically for us to see. The governor, he doesn't talk about Apapa anymore. There are other serious things to talk about in Lagos, like Blue Line and Red Line. Now we move on to the Punch newspaper. Fuel scarcity bites harder. Marketers blame NNPC Ipman to sell petrol at 270 naira per litre as supply gap widens, lingers. NNPC GMD defense subsidy oil production now 1.52 million barrels per day. Now, the NNPC group managing director is used to shouting from the rooftop, "We have enough petrol, we have enough stock." Sole importer of petroleum products, NNPCL. Now, we don't hear the group managing director say anything about the scarcity. We can see the long queues. Of course, those who want to buy petrol where it is being sold for 170, they don't think about traffic and blocking the road. Right now in Lagos is one huge chaos all over the place because people are scrambling to get fuel. Now the foreign newspapers quickly. Now before the foreign newspaper, yes, let's look at what the Nation newspaper is reporting. Senior advocates of Nigeria poll under threat by returning officers' powers. Olani Ekun raises concern over Section 65 of Electoral Act. Agbakoba seeks clarification on Section 134 of 134 of the 1999 Constitution. Now, if you're talking about a section of the Electoral Act, talking about the powers of, what do you want the nation to do now? To go and re-amend that piece of legislation. Of course, the National Assembly going on recess this week, and they will not return until after the elections. So let us deal with the situation. The foreign newspaper quickly, Guardian newspaper, nurses and ambulance staff to stage unprecedented joint strike. February 6th, the NHS will be grounded. Nurses who are going on strike for the 5th time in the last couple of months will be having a joint coordinated strike with ambulance workers on that day. Of course, you had better not have an emergency. Of course, the people in the UK will be thinking about how that day will look. Ruben and Ayo.
Well, quickly, I need to make additional comments on the statements credited to the Minister of Police Affairs yesterday. The first one, which we tried to talk about earlier on, is the extension of the tenure of the Inspector General of Police. And the Minister of Police Affairs is relying on the provisions of the Police Act 2020, the new Police Act. Specifically, it will be Section 7, subsection 6 thereof, which gives the Inspector General of Police a 4-year tenure. But if you look at that same law in Section 18, subsection 8, says that any police officer will retire in line with public service rules if you have served for 35 years or upon the attainment of the age of 60. Now, statutes are not supposed to be read in isolation. You are supposed to take a community reading of both. However, this particular law has been tested with Mohammed Adamu when the president in 2021 decided to extend the tenure of the then IGP. At that time, when Maxwell Okpara went to court, even the Nigerian Bar Association went to court and said, look, if we were to look at Section 215 of the Constitution, the president cannot extend the tenure of the Inspector General of Police. But the truth of the matter is that under Section 214, 215, 216, the entire police institution is under the control of the President of Nigeria, which is part of the problem. But that ruling in 2021, on the basis of which Mohammed Adamu was given 3 months extension, has not been challenged. So they can now rely on precedents, stare decisis, to say a precedent was established with Mohammed Adamu, and now they've done the same thing with, Kali Baba. Well, what are the implications for morale within the police force? Because quoting the law is not enough. You also have to look at the environment. That's one. Number 2, which is why I went back to the subject. The Minister of Police Affairs was said to have been boasting yesterday that corruption among the rank and file in the Nigerian police has reduced, in fact, has been eliminated. No, that's a lie. The people who go onto the streets of Nigeria every day, they know that the rank and file, the policemen, they just killed somebody in Aja, all because of money. They keep killing people every day. So that's not true.
Was it because of money they killed them?
Well, they wanted to stop a vehicle by force.
And to check her papers?
Which papers?
Not necessarily because of money.
Then, of course, he says police...
That case is in court, Ruben.
Police training institutions have been upgraded and rehabilitated. I've not seen any rehabilitation at the Ikeja Police College. And then, so that's also not true. And then finally, he says they are trying to do a bill to legitimize existing police training schools. Does it mean that we have illegal police training units?
When I heard of that bill, I thought they wanted to establish more institutions, police colleges.
No,
so I wanted to canvass that.
They say they want to give legal backing.
I thought they were talking of new institutions so that they will locate one in Delta State.
There will be need for closer interrogation of what the Minister of Police Affairs was saying. So a combination of half-truths.
We need clarity to some of the things.
Yeah. But maybe somebody will go to court again this time around to challenge the decision that has been taken with regard
to... But the IGP will not stay there forever.
Let me just mention that finally the 2 held captives in Edo State have been released.
Yes.
And also
the last 2
have been made. The last 2 have been released, and the arrests have been made suspects in that kidnapping.
Including 2
monarchs.
No, not monarchs. Village.
Well, we have to go now. Emmanuel Ofeni, we thank you very much. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll be talking to Folashade Aliyu, National Campaign Secretary for the New Nigeria People's Party. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Dis na Emeka. He like to dey keep money for her. As CBN deadline don dey near so. This one na wise Emeka. As he don hear say deadline dey near, he wan carry money go deposit for the right place with Access Bank.
It's time to spread your wings and fly. Reach for the sky.
Even if the bank too far, now to go to the nearest access closer agent. No carry last with your money.
Get up right now, right now. Get up.
Money where you deposit for Access Bank. Now money where you go make your mind rest well. Don't let the money spoil for your hand, oh. 10 million naira today, 50 naira tomorrow. Oya, Musa, Shade, Onye. Carry your money go Access Bank or Access Closer agent when near you. Access, more than banking.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The presidential candidate of the new Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, Alhaji Musa Kwankwaso, has revealed that he is ready to step down his 2023 presidential ambition if he sees a better candidate contesting the 2023 presidential election. The NNPP flag bearer said this while reeling out his political credentials at the Chatham House on Wednesday. Kwankwaso promised to revamp the economy and create a conducive environment for businesses to thrive and attract more foreign investment if elected. He also vowed to deal with poverty and poor education in the North if elected. Joining us on the show this morning to discuss Kwankwaso's address at Chatham House is Folashade Aliyu, National Campaign Secretary for the new Nigeria People's Party. Good morning and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning, Ms. Aliyu. Good to have you on the program. Well, yesterday at Chatham House, your candidate...
Good morning, Doctor.
Morning. Your candidate, Dr. Kwankwaso, seemed to have spent so much time talking about the Labour Party, how he's a PhD holder and not a trader, how some other people are playing the politics of ethnicity and religion. Why did he make that choice? I mean, he was better off focusing on his own issues rather than talking about other candidates at, a forum like the Chatham House. Was that a deliberate strategy?
Well, first, let me appreciate what Arise is doing in terms of voters' education and parties' participation in the forthcoming election. But very importantly, I want to debunk the fact that distinguished Senator Rabi Musa Kwankwaso said he will step down. He never said that. What he said precisely, if you go back to what was said yesterday at the Chatham House, is that if you have a more qualified candidate, I will speak, I will talk, we will discuss. And that does not justify stepping down. Thank you very much. And then in terms of speaking about the Labour Party candidate, the gentleman that asked the question, we understand that a lot is going on social media, and you find that some of these things some of these contests are cooked up, and for me it's blackmailing, and we don't need to get to that point. What distinguished Senator Rabi Musa Kwankwaso is trying to exhibit yesterday is maturity and leadership. To say that it's not a do-or-die situation. If you have somebody that you think can do better and more qualified, let's talk, and then we'll go from there. So that's that about that. Talking about Labour Party, initially before the high-neck cut-off point, we were approached and we spoke and we laid down our strategies to have a conversation together. And their position is more of, it's the turn of the Southeast and the rest of that. And they're not willing to look at what we put on the table in a manner that is intelligent enough that we can have a good discussion. So, and, as a campaign organization or as a supporter of a candidate, if you speak on behalf of that candidate and you were willing to negotiate or discuss on behalf of that candidate or the party, you must be flexible, you must be open-minded, you must be objective, and you must do it in the interest of Nigeria. What we are telling Nigerians is that we are ready on the first day, day one, based on the experience of distinguished Senator Rabi Musa Kwankwaso. His qualification, his exposure is reached across Nigeria and beyond Nigeria. And what we are also saying is that Nigeria, we are really at a crossroad. We need somebody that can roll up his sleeve on the first day. We need somebody that can impact the lives of people. And we need a leadership that is people-centric and is doing what it's proposing to do in the interest of all of us and generations to come.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Aliyu. So whilst he was speaking at Chatham House, like Dr. mentioned, it did seem as if he was focusing a lot on the Labour Party candidate. So let's talk about his own campaign. One of the things he said was that he had gained national appeal and he was the candidate, or he is the candidate to beat towards the presidential race.
Yes.
However, I'd like you to evaluate his campaign, his campaign strategy. Where has he been to? What's his inroad into the southwest, into the southern part of Nigeria, southwest, south, and what are some of the key things he's been able to address during his campaign?
Okay, let me answer your first question in terms of he's not focusing on the Labour Party candidate. He had presented his paper, he had answered questions. And if you have questions or issues that are trending and people are confused and they don't know exactly what is going on, you want to hear it from the horse's mouth. That's why he took his time to elaborate on the Labour Party's candidate. At the beginning of the session, he had spoken about the 4 major things that is very germane in our campaign. It spoke about deepening democracy, the social factors. He spoke about the human security, and he spoke about the economy. So those things he had been able to elaborate. And you can see that session was so interesting that we didn't even know the time was running fast. So for him to have taken his time to elaborate or to emphasize on certain things in terms of the Labour Party candidate, I think is the appropriate thing to do at that moment, based on the question. Now, coming to our own campaign, we have done our cross-country. We have gone from, actually we only have a state out of that we've not been able to assess properly for certain reasons. Out of the 774 local governments, by now we have done close to 450 and even more by now. So we've been talking to people. We have been going by road. We have been going by air, but mostly by road, so that we can see the faces of Nigerians. Nigerians can see us, they can feel us, and they can know that we care about them. Like I said, the leadership of this country, which everybody talks about, it's it's not at its best. So coming to this next election, it's very critical that we are very objective, even as voters, that we understand who will protect our interests, our businesses, our children, our education, the health services, our global bilateral agreements and global issues. A lot goes with governance. It is not just I will do. It's what you have done in the past. Your performance is up to date and what you are capable and you are competent to do in the future. Nigeria needs a leader that can concentrate, that understands, that can talk to issues, that can address issues, that understands what's going on in the country, and that can add his own input to what is going on. It's not the issue of having consultants or what have you all over the place, and then they tell you this is it, you can keep borrowing, and you keep borrowing, and you don't understand what they're saying. But you understand that they say you can keep borrowing, and you think you see. So what I'm saying, in other words, we need a leader that is knowledgeable, that is very diverse in education, in his experience, in hands-on leadership, that can be a mentor to other people coming behind him. We need someone that is very selfless. And we need, especially now, that a lot of Nigerians feel like we should be in a better place. We have the resources, we have the people. What is lacking is the leadership to give us, to put us in the right direction. make the policies that will protect our businesses, our interests, our families. So that's what we're concentrating on. So we've been doing our campaign in the North. We are well known. In the South, yes, we are trying. We are not as known in the South compared with the North. But trust me, we have gone to several places. The other time we traveled from Lagos to Ogun State, and then we crossed to Ondo State, and then to Ekiti, and then back to Lagos. So that's the way we plan, our trips. And it's been working for us. It's been working for us. We are getting very good results because people appreciate that even a presidential candidate can come to certain villages and see the heights of certain people. And we need a leader that can deal and represent us with the top of the top and the lowest of the lowest and everything in between. And that is what separates distinguished Senator Rabi Musa Kwankwaso from the other contestants at this point.
Okay. Yesterday at Chatham House, Dr. Kwankwaso said, our party, the NNPP, is the only growing party in Nigeria. But he then added the caveat, which you yourself pointed out. Can you hear me? Hello? Hi. Hello? Okay, we take a quick break. After that, we'll return to Abuja, and the conversation with Folashade Aliyu will continue. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
A reflection of the Nigerian never say die spirit. They never stay down. You're always thinking of how to improve. You're always thinking of how to move forward. My name is Emmanuel Ahimieho. I've been a civil engineer for 18 years. I'm the project manager of Obajana Kaba Road. The Obajana Kaba Road is 43 kilometers built completely of concrete pavement. We started work on December 2016. I remember when we came here, it was virtually lifeless. We're building a road that we know will need very minimal maintenance. It's a road that we don't need to rush back to in 5 years, trying to carry out major maintenance work. We don't need to import anything that we need on the road. They are all locally available materials. All the cement we use on this road is from Dangote Cement Factory, which is the largest cement factory in Africa. The sand is from the communities, so people from the community, they end up becoming suppliers. Imagine supplying sand for a 43-kilometer road. It's a lot of money. There are things I've learned from building this concrete road that I never knew 10 years ago. And to be able to lead those people to achieve something worthwhile, something that is of value to them, to the community, to people who have never met us. And I am positive that the road will outlast most of the people who are building the road. Along this road, you have up to 12 communities. People have the confidence to open shops. Why? Because, someone is going through the road, they sell their things, they sell their goods. That is more money for them. We have a number of eateries now, and you want to buy food along the road, you get fresh food, not food that are preserved. No, you get fresh food. So it is good for us, and it's good for the community too. The road is a lot more safer now for everybody, including Halima, including other travelers. So they have better road, lesser crime, shorter journey times, so a lot of advantages. I've had people who go through the roads and they stop to just say, well done. We are proud of what is happening here. We're happy that this is going on in Nigeria in our time. We can see it. They are proud of it. I think it has brought life back to the communities. I feel very proud, extremely proud being a part of this project.
Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Our guest is still Folashade Aliyu, National Campaign Secretary for the New Nigeria People's Party. Welcome back to the morning show. Thank you for staying with us, Folashade Aliyu. I hope you can hear me now.
I hear you very clearly.
Very good.
Have a making.
Excellent. Okay, I was going to ask you a follow-up question with regard to what you said about the NNPP. Yes, and I was quoting Dr. Kwankwanso, who said at the Chatham House that the NNPP is the only growing party in Nigeria. But he admitted, as you yourself pointed out, that the party is doing well in the north, but it's not doing well in the south. Well, he said we are better known in the north rather than in the south. But the Nigerian Constitution, Section 134 specifically, requires that political parties that win the presidential election must have 1/4 of the votes in 2/3 of the states, 36 states, plus the FCT. And then, of course, you must have the highest number of votes cast during that particular election. Isn't this an indication, an admission by Dr. Kwankwanso that he himself has realized that he doesn't stand quite a chance if he's just popular in one part of the country? Is there the possibility of doing a deal with another political party that stands a better chance?
Well, once again, Dr. Abate, I'd like to say that that's our expression and our admission to say that we are growing. We're going faster or better in a certain part of the country. Doesn't mean that we're not growing in the South. We are trying to explain to the public that based on our activities and our events and our acceptance in the North, because it is well known in the North, much better. We don't need to go beat around the bush about that. So when we say that we are growing very, very fast in the South. What he was trying to express is that he's locked up the North. And when you do that, you start from the point of your strength. If you want to win any election or any competition, we are growing very, very fast in the South. And I will tell you that in the period that we were the candidates, the nomination of the candidates, we have candidates in all of the seats across Nigeria, up to the state, from the State Assembly to the House of Rep, to the Senate seat, gubernatorial seats. All of our seats were 100% filled. And that shows you, when you say that we are doing better here than there, that means that we are concentrating in the part that we are not doing as well as we want to be. And that's for any candidate, and that's for any election, and that's for any competition. When you acknowledge the fact that you need to work smarter, you need to work harder in certain aspects of your constituency or your area of concern, you let people know so that you can concentrate more at this particular time. So it's not an admittance that we're not going to do well in the South. And the issue of the 25%, we understand that very clearly. It was part of the national conference that made that decision to make sure that when people win an election, it's across the board instead of in a region. We understand very clearly. And I would also like to share with you that in the back end of any campaign or any election preparation, you sit down, you look at your figures, you look at the demographics of where you are doing very well, where you need to improve, where you need to do certain things, and you do it. And if you do it right, you do it smart, you do it at the right time, you will see a result.
Okay.
Nigerians are accepting us at a speed of light.
All right.
So that's what we are expressing, that we're working better to do much, much more greater things in the South. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Aliyu. Let's take one or two issues, because you talked about this earlier on, that when he opened up his speech at Chatham House, he spoke to some of the issues. I just want to highlight two out of them. One on security and the second on the economy. First, on security, he had said that he would multiply by 400% the number of security services, include military, police, DSS. I'd like to find out how he hopes to fund that, bearing in mind that he would potentially be, if he does become president, inheriting a 77 trillion naira debt profile. And then that goes again to the economy as well. What are his plans to shore up revenue for Nigeria?
Well, that's where the experience comes in. And that is where the issue of good managers of resources comes in. Senator Rabi Musa Kwankwaso is a very good manager of resources. And I will explain, let me give you an example before I go further. When he was in Kano on his second term, the issue of capital expenditure and recurrent expenditure were 70 for recurrent and 30% for capital expenditure. By the time he left, he had been able to turn that around. 70 towards capital expenditure. And that is to say that you can see that as a leader, you understand the area of wastages, you understand the area that you can improve, you understand the area that you can be creative in a manner that it will work for the people. So people ask, where are you going to get the money? The money, like he expressed yesterday, if we look at these wastages, if we look at for instance, what is our production level today, if we look at how we can improve on that, if we look at streamlining a few things across the nation, you'll find that the money comes. There are so many resources and assets of Nigeria at the moment that for one reason or the other, you don't know why people are not paying, or the government is not paying adequate attention to it. And in order to raise funds, you don't rely on the fact that, oh, I have this wide margin of borrowing and keep borrowing. That's not going to help anybody. And that also trickles down to the economy. Look at where we are today. Where we are today is because certain decisions are not looked at critically. I'm not saying that there's no government that will be there that says I will not do well, but if you don't have the right people or the right resources or you're making the right policies, you know, it will affect everything, and that's just the way we see it. For instance, if you look at manufacturing today, that employs a lot of people. How many manufacturers are out there today? How many manufacturers have gone out of Nigeria because of our policy? So our policies has to be people-driven. It has to be economy-friendly, business-friendly, if you will. And it's not only at the top of the ladder. Even if you look at the person, you know, at the market level, how is these policies that we're making impacting their businesses and their lives?
All right, thank you
so
so much,
the money is there.
Mrs.
We will
Aliyu.
get it when we get there.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Aliyu.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the morning show today. It's time now for a short break. When we return, Ojinika Upe will be here with details on what's trending. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
New Naira notes? Don't panic. Here's what you need to know. Ensure to make deposits of all old banknotes before January 31, 2023. To make the process seamless for you, all Fidelity Bank branches will be open till 6 p.m. on weekdays and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays to allow for cash deposits only. Also, please note that bank charges on all cash deposits have been suspended by the CBN. However, charges shall still be applied on cash withdrawals. The new banknotes can be accessed at any Fidelity Bank branch nationwide from December 15, 2022. Old banknotes will remain in circulation till January 31, 2023, when they will cease to be legal tender, as directed by the CBN. For more inquiries, follow us on our social media channels or email us at true.serve@fidelitybank.ng. You can also call 0700 3035 489 or reach us on WhatsApp on 090 3000 5252. Thank you for banking with us.
We are Fidelity. We keep our word.
Introducing an all-time mega offer. Get over 50% discount in the Airtel Home Broadband Mega Offer. Buy a router for just 10,000 Naira and get up to 240 gigabyte or a MiFi for 5,000 Naira and get up to 125 gigabyte bonus data. More data, more you. Reliable home broadband buy.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
As you adjust to the new realities for operating your business and engaging with your customers, let us help you transform your business into a digital powerhouse capable of adapting and taking advantage of today's opportunities. With our best-in-class array of digital solutions, you can conduct your business, receive payments from your customers, and perform transactions quickly, safely, and conveniently, because we've got you covered with the right people, technology, and service offerings. Contact us today and let us take your business to its zenith. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
Yesterday I got a call from Globe. I won a 3-bedroom bungalow.
Yes, guys! Guess what? I won a car.
I won a generator by participating in the Festival of Joy promo by Glow.
Hey, Glow don't do this one for me. Glow to make it set to me with sewing machine.
I won generator last year. This year I won for
It's a celebration like no other with prizes like no other. 20 new houses to be won. 24 brand new cars. 200 sewing machines. 100 generators, 1,000 rechargeable fans. Glow Festival of Joy promo. Dial star 611 hash now.
Papa, mama, brother, sister. This Lagos must work for all of us. Everybody da fueko.
Oh yes, Lagos people. Papa, mama, sister, brother, auntie, plus including uncle them. Better don't land for Lagos State gidigba. Money will be for Lagos State, then go use them for Lagos State. Wella, no more Baba Sope. They no go chop Lagos State money. Nobody go pocket Lagos State. Then go take and build Lagos State, build road, build hospital, build houses. And now only one man fit do this job. His name na Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jando. He can't carry one obonge person as the deputy governor. Her name na Funke Akindele Jennifer. My people, what do we wait for? Make we vote for light, vote for change. No be the kind change where they vote before. This one na the original change. How Amumu don't do? Pay they pay.
Everybody da fueko.
Imagine your wallet can be everything. Well, almost everything your bank is to you. That's exactly what First Money Wallet is. First Money Wallet from First Bank is another swift and seamless way to bank from your mobile phone. It doesn't matter if you have a First Bank account or not, nor the mobile network you use. Everyone can open a First Money Wallet, and it's very easy. Your phone number is your account number. With First Money Wallet, you can send money using just a phone number, receive money, pay bills, buy airtime and data for yourself or someone else, and in check balance. You don't need a bank account at all or BVN to enjoy the boundless possibilities First Money Wallet offers. All you need is a registered phone number, and you can fund your wallet easily through your First Bank account or any bank account and debit card. What's more, First Money Wallet is highly secure with fingerprint technology and PIN. And when you need cash, just walk up to any First Money agent near you to withdraw money. No smartphone, no wahala. Just dial *894*1# on any phone. So it doesn't matter if you live in the city or the remotest part of the country. With First Money Wallet, your transactions are easy, seamless, and secure. Download the First Money Wallet app now. Input your phone number and follow the prompts, or simply dial *894*1#. All money now on First Money. You first. First Bank.
I've been running my business on my own, trying my best to get it to the next level. but I really need some help to get ahead. I know just what to do, I'll vote it for my loans. Overdraft. Step by step to my dream business we vote. Salary earners, entrepreneurs, get your loans with no collateral. Quick sign up, zero paperwork. Step by step to your dream business we vote.
Vault is available to individuals, SMEs, and corporate customers. Download Vault by Polaris Bank from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to get started today.
Esther, you're late again. Esther?
She's a wandering light in the darkness. She's beautiful. She's a superstar. She never let her mama down. She's beautiful. She know they fear. She know they ever got a hand for her.
No phones at the table, please. Esther. I love you too.
Got everything? Don't forget I'll pick you at 4.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now is Ojinika Ojiokwe with stories trending around the world. Hello, Janik.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. How are you this morning? Great. I heard you giggle. You can't help yourself, right? Try. How are you, Ayo?
I'm very well, thanks.
Great.
How are you too?
I'm doing excellent
love
this
your
morning.
outfit and
You
the
know
color.
this is my favorite color too. Yeah, well, now I love yours too.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, all right. Good morning to you, viewers. Here are some of the stories that are trending across the globe. In Italy, Pope Francis on Wednesday asked for prayers for late Nigerian Reverend Father Isaac Achi, a priest of St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church in Niger State, who was burnt to death when gunmen attacked his residence on Sunday, January 15. The assailants also shot a colleague of the priest, identified as Father Collins, while he was trying to escape. In a Twitter post, the Pope, in his request for prayers, condemned the attack on Christians in the northern part of the country, stating that Christians continue to be a target of violence. In Nigeria, a federal high court in Abuja has struck out a suit seeking the disqualification of the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and his running mate, Kashim Shettima, from participating in the election on the grounds that the nomination of the Muslim candidacy was unconstitutional. The presiding judge, Ahmed Mohammed, struck out the suit filed by Osigwe Momo on the grounds that he was not a member of the APC and as such lacked the locus standi to file the suit. Then, supporters of the People's Democratic Party trooped out in their numbers for the presidential rally held in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, on Wednesday. The rally featured the presence of Atiku Abubakar, the party's presidential candidate, Ifeanyi Okowa, his running mate, as well as Irocha Ayu, the national chairman of the party. While the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, and his running mate, Yusuf Dati Baba Ahmed, held a campaign rally in the northern state of Kaduna, the home state of Dati Baba Ahmed, where they were welcomed by a mammoth crowd. Finally, under entertainment, British Nigerian soul jazz vocalist Sade, African American rapper Snoop Dogg, and Latin American soul singer Gloria Estefan have been chosen among 7 musicians to join the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Snoop Dogg, whose hits include Drop It Like It's Hot, will be joining rappers like Missy Elliott and Jay-Z in the Hall's Rappers category, while Gloria Estefan, who is credited for popularizing Latin rhythms with crossover smashes like Let's Get Loud, and Sade, whose 1980s soft rock hits include Smooth Operator and The Sweetest Taboo, will all be inducted at a gala on June 15th at the Marriott Marquis Hotel in New York City.
Now I know your favorite musicians. You hear Dr. Abati was singing, we do miss Sade. I'm waiting for another release, really. Well, all right. Let's begin what's trending with reactions trailing statements made by the presidential candidate of the New Nigeria's People's Party, Rabiu Kwankwaso, at the Chatham House on Wednesday, in which he took a swipe at the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi. The former Kano State governor, while speaking at the Policy Institute, said that he withdrew from the discussion of alliance with the Labour Party because the party was built on ethnicity and religion and was carried away by the media hype, adding that he is more qualified than Peter Obi to become the next president of Nigeria. Citing his qualifications, the NNPP flag bearer also stated that he is ready for a discussion with any presidential candidate who has better qualifications than he does. Let's take a listen before we take some reactions.
If you have a party which is based on ethnicity and religion, that's the difference between Labour Party and, of course, our party, which is a national party, New Nigeria People's Party. Let me say that I was one of those initially wanting to work together with Labour Party. But unfortunately, at that time, Labour Party was under very serious media hype, and therefore they could not see reason. And you still not see reason that I will withdraw. I wish you didn't go to that extent. I am a PhD holder in civil engineering, and check your candidate, what he has. I have been in the system for over 30 years now. I have been a civil servant for 17 years. I wasn't a trader, civil servant for 17 years. I was Deputy Speaker of the House of Reps in 1992. I was in the Constitutional Conference elected delegate. I was Governor of Kano State for 8 years, and so on and so on. I was in the Senate, and so on and so forth. So when we sat down, what I told them is what I will tell you. Okay. If anybody wants to Kwankwaso to withdraw, let's bring criteria and select the best. Anytime I have any better candidate, I'm ready to talk to him. Thank you very much.
Well, all right, let's take some tweets. Dev Guy wrote, neither of you wanted to be each other's vibes, so you both went your separate ways. Kwankwaso is a Muslim from the north, so his base is naturally Muslim north. Nothing strange in Christians given their overwhelming support to Peter Obi. How many times has this man visited the South to campaign? Well, Onishi wrote, one smart move Peter Obi made was to leave PDP, but the smartest move he made was to go without Kwankwaso. Kwankwaso showed his hatred for Peter Obi by disparaging him, his party, and his tribe. Because someone asked him why he did not step down for Obi, his answer showed that he is tribal. Well, another Twitter user there goes, if Peter Obi didn't come into play, if he accepted defeat at PDP and didn't push forward, there would have been 3 top Muslim candidates, Tinubu, Atiku, and Kwankwaso. Directly or indirectly, Nigeria is on a path to Islamization. Call it conspiracy theory, but it is what it is. Dr. Abati, over to you.
Okay, let's try to break down the points made by Dr. Rabiu Kwankwaso at Chatham House. I had written a piece talking about Chatham House and the real colonization of Nigeria, so I will not go into that. But let's look at some of the issues you raised. When we had Folashade Adiu on the program, just before he joined us, we drew our attention to the fact that, look, Dr. Kwankwaso seemed to have made too much capital out of, Labour Party. He even described the Labour Party as a party that is a Andrew liver salt, that is sustained by media. And she tried to provide a defense for that. But he's complaining about ethnicity. The truth of the matter is that even in his own presentation, he admitted that his party is more popular in the north than in the south. And there will be persons who will say, look, the main strength of the New Nigeria Party is People's Party is in the north. So if he says the Labour Party is strong, has some inroad in the southeast, the same argument can be made for his party. Now, he said the Labour Party, that he's a PhD holder in civil engineering, he's not a trader. Well, I don't think it's fair to put anybody down as a trader. I'll come to think about PhD. I don't know when Dr. Kwankwaso got his own PhD. I got mine 32 years ago, in 1990. But the argument about having a PhD conferring upon you leadership qualities is wrong. They tried it in Mexico between 1984 and maybe 1998. They had this set of, PhD economics. All of them, they have PhD either from Harvard or from Yale. Okay, and in economics, they became president one after the other. Salinas, Zedillo, and Golinas. These were PhD Harvard. No, they could not rescue Mexico. In fact, the PhD holders ran the country down. So you need something more than a PhD to be able to provide leadership. So Mr. Peter Obi was dismissed as a trader, and people say that a lot. But look, he's a university graduate. He's not just a university graduate, he's a very well-educated person. I've mentioned on this program before that this is a guy, who has been in some of the top universities abroad, developing himself. I was in the same class with him in Oxford, Said Business School, and he was an asset to the class. From there, he went to Harvard to go and do another course. From there, he went to Switzerland to do another course. So there's nothing wrong in being a trader. In fact, maybe, having trading skills, could even be an advantage. So this is why we keep making the point that, look, focus on your own issues. You don't need to put other candidates down or engage in the politics of abuse. Anyway, I'm not defending Peter Obi. I'm just speaking out of what I know. I'm sure his obedience will be ready to defend him. However, there were other issues raised by Dr. Kwankwaso, PhD civil engineering, issues about security, which he said he would deal with, issues about how Nigeria had consistently over the years made wrong choices and where that has brought us. And how, in the crisis in the Northeast and in the Northwest is as a result of this scramble for mineral resources in Nigeria. And then, of course, he has also talked about education. So I think he should be engaged more. He should focus more on those issues. And if he thinks that Peter Obi is not so important, why the obsession with him? Okay, so this is perhaps why Pastor Tunde Bakare was right in saying that Peter Obi's obedient movement is a memory jogger. Absolutely. That was how he described him in that his famous January 15, sermon. But on the whole, it's the people of Nigeria that will decide. Folashade Aliyu made a very good case for Dr. Kwankwaso and the NNPP, but at the end of the day, we'll see how all of this pans out.
Yeah, well, Ayo, there has been a lot of mixed reactions emanating from Kwankwaso's speech at the Chatham House, and one of them is what Dr. Abati mentioned, trying to degrade Peter Obi as a trader. A lot of people, obedience, like you would call them, have, come at him. Some of them are saying, well, you are a PhD holder, you haven't been able to return millions of, during your tenure, there were a lot of out-of-school children, but during Peter Obi's tenure, that education was the top priority there. So, those are some of the issues here that people were raising.
Well, very well said. I don't know why there's dignity in labor, let me put it that way. So whether you're a trader, a mechanic, a vulcanizer, as long as you're working to earn money, there's dignity in that. And I think that it's time we started to respect that and not put people down and say that, oh, you're this or this profession or that profession. If he's a trader that has made such strides as we have highlighted, then it's something to be proud of. We must continue to even push more the dignity in work in Nigeria more than ever, especially with the rise of advanced free forward and the likes, where people want a quick way to money. When you find a man or woman who is willing to work and engage his hands to work to earn money, then that's brilliant. But going back to his Chatham appearance, he spoke to some issues, but what would have liked to see was perhaps a bit more, spending more time. And that is a problem with politics, whereby you spend your time speaking about your candidate.
Yes.
You don't actually have enough time to spend, and some people call it a distractory or diversionary tactic. So if you don't want to, when you don't have enough material to present, then you begin to speak about the other person. His representative, though, said that it was because he had to clear the air since it had been going on around, in terms of the fact that why didn't they come to an alliance? Would it have been better? His description of what happened gives an indication of what the conversation might have sounded like, because he said the reason why they didn't come to an agreement was because Mr. Peter Obi was riding high on media publicity at the time.
Yeah.
So it seemed as if there was a conversation, obviously, and he felt like he was too big, he became too proud because of what he had been hearing, and so didn't want to concede, and vice versa. That seemed like what must have happened. But that's over and done with now. We're still having conversations around that. But now let's focus. We have 37 days to the elections. He claims that the NNPP is a national party and still said that it's still only prevalent, at least in terms of the work they've been doing, the inroads in the north. Like I said to you off air, just before we came on air, Oji, it's almost beginning to seem like this has become a three-party race, if we're being honest, and watching what's on ground.
Yes.
It was a four-party race now, but NNPP doesn't seem to be giving us the juice or what we thought we saw in the early stages of the campaign.
Yeah. Well, that comment where he made stating that, the Labour Party was carried away by media hype. I mean, isn't that what you should look for in a party? So it's a bit off as well. But we'll take another story. Pastor Tunde Bakare, the serving overseer of the Citadel Global Community Church, has been trending on social media after tackling critics who opposed his State of the Nation address on Sunday, January 15th. Bakare took a swipe at the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, during a live broadcast, stating that politicians who practice the Emi Lokon kind of politics do not intend to serve the people. The Presidential Campaign Council of the All Progressives Congress, in responding to Bakare, said that a man who got 0 votes at a primary election deserves no serious attention and described him as a political paperweight. Well, Tunde Bakare hit back at the APC, asking why his utterances were given any thought if he was truly a political paperweight, further stating that maybe their alleged paperweight is too heavy for them to carry.
I am prepared for vicious attacks from all and major presidential hopefuls and their agents who by now have concluded that I'm against them. One of such attacks came yesterday. Listen to what they wrote about the State of the Nation broadcast. I'm quoting them. A man who got 0 votes at primary election deserves no serious attention. Question, why did they then respond? A man who got 0 votes at primary election deserves no serious attention. He is a political paperweight whose utterances should not be given a serious thought. Can someone tell these people that scoring 0 in a primary election with one's true identity and integrity intact, as well as having original credentials from all well-known schools, primary, secondary, colleges, university, within and outside of this nation, is a veritable badge of honor, absolutely legit and unquestionable. Please tell them that in the words of Michel de Montaigne, there are some defeats more triumphant than victory.
You know, I love that. There are some defeats more triumphant than victory. Dr. Bati, today Bakar is your friend, so I'm giving you the room here to speak.
No, just to look at the point. I mean, if you make a statement, you must expect a response.
Yes.
On January 15, Pastor Bakari gave that explosive sermon in which he was talking about, you know, some people having a sense of entitlement and how a sense of entitlement will lead to an imperial presidency that is not in the best interest of Nigerians, and how the objective should be good governance. Okay? And then he talked about what should be the priorities for the average Nigerian. Getting people who deliver good governance, not people who think that they are entitled. And he used this phrase, Emilokon, although he did not mention the name of the candidate of the APC. But as a lawyer, he knows that there's something called innuendo. So if you make your innuendo so clear, everybody will know. So the APC people replied, they called him a paperweight. And then he has replied again, exercising his own right of reply. Absolutely. This time around. But, as a pastor, he has the right to have his own opinions. The pulpit is used, to conscientize the people, either in Christian manner or in political manner. And it is wrong for anybody to say a pastor cannot discuss politics. He has been in politics since the early 2000s. In fact, I think he was detained at the time by even the Obasanjo government detained him. He was involved in the protest for good governance, for democracy in Nigeria from even 1999 up till even 2012 and beyond. In 2011, he was a candidate of the was it the APC at the time, or was it the ACN? He was running mate to the then candidate, Muhammadu Buhari, who is now president. So he's been in the political space. So to say he's a paperweight, I think he's just saying, if his words don't carry weight, then why respond to him? But we're going to get a lot of this. Endorsements, protests, contestations. But all we just want is a very credible electoral process that provides the opportunity for the average Nigerian to make an informed choice.
Absolutely. Aya, really quickly.
Very quickly, another thing he said in that statement was that they had accused him of telling his members to vote in a particular way. And he said that his members were not zombies, and it was a doctored video. It was a sermon he had preached some years ago, which some mischief makers had gone to seem as if he was telling people who to vote for. He said people had a right to choose whomever they wanted to vote for. No one has the right to tell you who to vote for, and Nigerians should go out on February 25 and March 11, based on what they have seen and credibility of candidates, choose whom they feel is the best person to be their leader.
Well said, both of you. Thank you again, as always.
Thank you.
Well,
thank you very much, Jamaica.
Absolutely. That's all I have for you on What's Trending today. I'll see you all tomorrow.
And that's all on today's edition of The Morning Show. Oliver McPherson Smith will be here next to take you through Global Business Report. Stay with us. It's still the Arise News channel.
Dis na Emeka. He like to dey keep money for her. As CBN deadline don dey near so. This one na wise Emeka. As he don hear say deadline dey near, he wan carry money go deposit for the right place with Access Bank.
It's time to spread your wings and fly. Reach for the sky.
Even if the bank too far, na to go to the nearest Access Closer agent. No carry last with your money o.
Get up right now, right now.
Money wey you deposit for Access Bank, na money wey go make your mind rest well well. Don't let the money spoil for your hand o. 10 million naira today, fit be 0 naira tomorrow. Oya o, Musa, Shade, Onyinye, carry your money go Access Bank or Access Closer agent wey near you. Access, more than banking.
My people, my name is Emeka. Mekus Kamat. Let me get all this motor. I don't learn my lesson. Somebody come buy motor for my hand, carry big money, come give me. Now when we get bust, now my eye open. I don't know say that 419 be. Now when EFCC babam, now they come bab me too. Now he make me they warn you. All of them when they do business like me, where they carry big money, when I go sometimes I go carry transfer, carry bring back. Yeah. They could not shine in my eye because the special control unit against money laundering, what they call SCUMO, they don't want to say if the money pass 5 million naira for individual, if it pass 10 million naira for company, no collect them, can I go where? Bank. If you not do them like that, and 50,000 naira for every day where this offense happen. Or they go suspend your license, or they go cuckoo, shut them down, mata for your hand. No talk say, I no warn you.
This message is from the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC.
My brother, my sister, una dey there? Listen make I clear una well. To win election, no be only say your vote na im plenty pass o. Before person fit win election for we country, the person must win 25% of vote for 2/3 of state, plus the FCT for Nigeria. That one na for president. And governor must win the same thing for all local government area for the state. Na so our constitution put am o, and na so all our presido take become presido. All our governors na the same way them take win. So therefore, my people, our country big no be small o, and we get different language, different religion, ethnic group nko. That one self dey nyafu. Now why nobody fit think say if you don't get north vote, abi south vote, abi east or west vote, you don't do. Na lie yo, except you collect vote from all over the country, you just dey bobo yourself. Make una tell everybody, make everybody for know now. Make you no for cause fight tomorrow. Na Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, with support from the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, bring on this message.
Hello and welcome to Arise News. You're watching the Global Business Report. I'm Oliver McPherson-Smith, coming to you from Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos. Let's look at the stories currently making headlines across the business world today. Microsoft to cut 10,000 jobs as big tech layoffs continue. China's Xi Jinping warns of COVID spread as millions travel for Lunar New Year. And Usain Bolt seeks missing $12.7 million from a Jamaican investment firm. And at Davos 2023, Arise News speaks to the governor of the Reserve Bank of South Africa and the group's CEO of MTN. Well, we begin in China, where Xi Jinping said he is concerned about the virus situation in the Chinese countryside. He made this comment as millions of people head to rural hometowns ahead of the upcoming Lunar New Year celebrations. The Chinese leader also defended his zero-COVID policy, which was lifted last month after crippling the economy and sparking nationwide protests, saying it had been the right choice. According to a statement from the Ministry of Commerce, Chinese Vice Premier Liu He met with US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen on Wednesday to discuss American economic and technological policies towards China. A translation of the briefing stated that China hopes the US side pays heed to the policy's impact on both sides. The Bureau of Industry and Security of the US Department of Commerce issued broad prohibitions against American companies and individuals working with Chinese partners on high-end semiconductors in October. This specialized industry has relied on American and foreign instruments for advancement. And New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, a global figurehead of progressive politics, shocked the country and the world today by announcing she will resign from office in a matter of weeks. The 42-year-old, who steered the country through natural disasters, the COVID pandemic, and its worst ever terror attack, said she no longer had enough gas in the tank. Ardern said she will step down no later than February 7th, less than 3 years after winning a landslide election to secure her second term in office. In France, employees are set to go on a strike to stop a proposed pension reform that will raise the retirement cost by 2 years to 64. Trains will be affected, schools will be shut down, and businesses will be closed. The National Day of Strikes and Protests will put President Emmanuel Macron and the unions to the test. According to opinion polls, the majority of French citizens oppose the reform that the government claims is necessary to prevent the pension system from collapsing. The leader of UK Labour, Sir Keir Starmer's message to business executives at Davos is that a Labour administration would do more to attract foreign investment to Britain, particularly in green industries. At the World Economic Forum, Sir Keir declared that Labour would work to bring global investment back. He claimed that under the Conservatives, international investment had dramatically decreased. His predecessor, Jeremy Corbyn, avoided the elite event, calling it a billionaire's jamboree. Well, Microsoft says it will lay off 10,000 employees in the coming months as the economic downturn continues to punish American tech giants. The job cuts will affect slightly less than 5% of employees and follow in the wake of similar moves by Facebook owner Meta, Amazon, and Twitter, which have announced thousands of layoffs in the once unassailable tech sector. The cuts were in response to macroeconomic conditions and changing customer priorities, the maker of the Windows operating system said in a US regulatory filing. Well, e-commerce giant Amazon says it too is cutting jobs in the United States, Canada, and Costa Rica as part of its plan to lay off 18,000 employees. This is according to a Reuters report. The layoffs join the latest round of job slashing in the American tech sector, with companies cutting their bloated workforce and trimming costs to reverse pandemic-era excesses and prepare for a worsening global economy. The company is terminating 2,300 employees in Seattle and Bellevue, according to an update on the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification site. The US labor law requires companies planning a mass layoff to inform employees 60 days before their closure. And Usain Bolt, the Olympic running champion, is attempting to recoup more than $12.7 million that vanished from his account with a Jamaican investment firm. And he's prepared to go to court if necessary, according to Mr. Bolt's lawyer. Now, according to attorney Linton Gordon, Bolt was informed last week that his account balance at Kingston-based Stocks and Securities Limited had mysteriously dropped to just $12,000. Genesis Global Capital, a cryptocurrency lender, is preparing to declare bankruptcy as soon as this week, according to a story published on Wednesday by Bloomberg News, which cited sources with knowledge of the matter.